Hey, what's happening, everyone? Thanks so much. Let me know if I have audio issues. So, real quick before I get into this video, which might be one of the most important videos I've ever done, I did say 8 p.m., but the wife says do it earlier because we're supposed to watch a movie tonight. So, no. Let me just explain my setup here before I get in. It'll give people a chance to come in and view the show. What's going on is you saw that I was doing my live streams next to my baby's crib. My old office has become my baby's room. I finally got the internet people to come today. Awesome people. The people at Atlantic Broadband were fantastic to me. They basically didn't charge me anything because I was moving the modem because my baby's coming along. So they were very cool. So I've moved upstairs and I'm echoey because the room I'm in right now has no furniture other than my desk. My lights and my chair here, my computer chair. So it's echoey. I do apologize about that. That's something I apologize. But other than that, everything should be good. I'll have background stuff like that coming up in the near future. But if you wonder why I look so bland behind me and why it's a little echoey, yeah. So let me know. Is the echo too bad? SJG, is it all right? I tried my best to do what I could to mitigate it, but I'll have to pick your brain, SJG. My friend SJG on here has an excellent channel himself. You should check out at SJG Perspective, but he's better at these tech issues than me. So thank you. So my shirt matches my bland background, right? All right, thanks so much. So, yeah, there's a story going on right now that's basically two stories. And it proves everything that people like me and SJG have been saying for years. It's hard to quantify which of these stories is bigger. But what I always try to do is try to look at the big picture and how all of these stories combined. And today has done that. So many things have culminated today. We've passed the point of no return. It is now beyond any shadow of a doubt proven that the media is no longer the media. They're just propagandists for the establishment, particularly the Democratic Party. That Silicon Valley is the same. They're just an apparatus of the Democratic Party. That they will censor conservatives. That they will hide the truth. That everything that they accuse you of, they themselves are. And they're totally shameless about it. They're not even hiding it anymore. And the stakes are so high because they realize, well, we can't lose this election. We can't actually face justice. If these stories come out about Joe Biden, it's not a story about Joe Biden's corruption. It's a story about the corruption of the entire apparatus, about Mitt Romney, people in the establishment, RNC, the entire Democratic Party, just about, our entire media, our entire Silicon Valley, our FBI, our State Department. All of them are implicated. And so they must stop it. No, at this point, they're so entrenched. They can't allow the American people to see the actual information. They can't. The stakes are too high at this point. If the American people would realize, oh my goodness, I can't believe how this one story shows how they're all in it together and corrupt. What does that mean for the rest of what they do? So, awesome, Foxy. Glad to hear it, man. So, let the Aussie in here. That's what this story is today. It's surprising to me. I feel like this was an error on the part of the Democrat and their media allies and Silicon Valley. Also, if you hear little toenails chittering, it's my dogs. They're fascinated because this room's empty, and so they're like, hey, new room to hang out in. Normally, what they do in this situation is they just ignore the story. They say, New York Post is right-wing garbage. Anyways, what about Trump's tax returns? That's what I expected them to do. They do this all the time. When this Ukraine scandal was breaking the first time, that's what they did. They just ignored it, said that the people reporting on it were garbage, and moved on. But they didn't outright censor things. I think it shows their desperation or their confidence. It depends on how cynical you are. You could look at today and say, look how desperate they are. But I don't know. Part of me looks at it and goes, look how confident they are. They're like, we don't even have to hide our corruption anymore. We could just throw it right in your face. Just right in your face. And there's nothing you could do about it. And guess what? All those Republicans that supposedly had your back, like I recommend watching a Periscope by Mike Cernovich today. Look, I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not talking about Josh Hawley. I'm talking about everyone else. Let's not forget, for 2 years, the Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Did they do anything to end the 230 protections of Silicon Valley? Anything? People like me and other content creators were constantly saying, what are the Republicans doing? Can't they see that the establishment is taking over social media and that they're going to censor any flow of information? You saw me talk about dozens of times on here the testimony of Robert Epstein, a professor that said Google had the ability to sway 16 million votes in 2020. 16 million. And the Republicans were just like, eh. Meanwhile, Mike Lee, Jim Jordan, people that we're supposed to think are these huge conservative, really strong conservatives. What have they done? They took money from Google and they've done nothing. They're like Lindsey Graham on the issue. Lindsey Graham's like, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to subpoena. We're going to get to the bottom. Oh, trust me, my people are on it. Has anything happened? Same way with Silicon Valley. The SEAL Team 6 stuff. Honestly, I've been so invested in this, I haven't looked much into it. The reason I'm not saying that so I can't say if I believe that story or not with the SEAL Team 6. But here's the thing. It relies on stuff that we can't see. Just people talking, saying evidence will come out. The difference with this story is I could show you all the evidence. I could prove to you in publicly released documents of the corruption of this story, which is why I focused on it. Because oftentimes when you're talking about stories like the SEAL story or the raid of Osama bin Laden and all that stuff, I'm trying to convince the average person how corrupt these mechanisms are. And they just look at me like, yeah, right, you got a tinfoil hat on, blah, blah, blah. This story I could show them. I could pull up on my phone and be like, look, right here. Here it is. Uncontested proof of the corruption that we see right now. That's right, Rational. Trump could have ended it. Jeff and Katz asks, do I think if Trump wins, this censorship could end? I don't know. It didn't. Trump won. He had the House. He had the Senate. Nothing changed. Trump's mistake is he trusted the people around him. He trusted Barr. He trusted Durham. He trusted people like John Bolton. And in my opinion, those people had a vested interest in covering up for the deep state. Now he's frustrated. Now Trump's like, we're 2 weeks out from an election. My people have been Trump's seen all this evidence. Trump knows about it. He's seen all this evidence of corruption. He's like, slam dunk. Slam dunk. My opponent's incredibly corrupt. Absolute proof of it. Everything they accused me of. Here's the evidence right here. Chris Wray and, Bill Barr, they're going to get this information out so the American people could see it, so they understand who I'm running against. They understand what the Democratic Party is. And he waited, 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 and now it's 2 weeks out from the election. And he's looking around like, what's going on? Where's Mike Pompeo? He said he was going to release all this stuff. Where's Bill Barr? They said they were going to release it. Where are they? So that's Trump's mistake. Or Trump's in on it. Which I don't think's the case, but either way, you could point the finger there. He should have made them. This should have all been out in 2018. Before the 2018 election. I was reporting on it. But the problem is, who watches me? 10, 20 people? I'm just brushed off. Oh, it's watch any of the debates I do. All the left has anymore is, well, all the experts say, the FBI says, so the FBI must be true. The foreign policy experts say, so they must be right. The State Department people say, so they must be right. All the health experts say, so they must be right. Chris Wray says, so he must be right. That's it. That's constantly what I deal with in every one of these debates. It doesn't matter what we can see with our own eyes and prove. They just default to the leadership. And when the leadership, well, Trump appointed the FBI. He appointed Chris Wray. So if all these allegations are true, wouldn't Chris Wray have done something? No, because Chris Wray's corrupt. Just like Rosenstein was corrupt. Just like Comey was corrupt. All of them are. So here's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to read you the New York Post story, which will probably get me banned off YouTube, whatever. We're going to talk about the implications of the tech censorship, what this means. And we'll go from there. But the first thing I want to do is talk about the story of the Ukraine. Now, I will say that I was maybe the third or fourth best person in the entire country. Excuse me. Excuse me, ladies. I'm trying to do a video. Tough guys here. Trust the plan. That's right, SJG. How many times have I argued? How many times have I argued with people? Oh, Rob, why are you getting so... Don't be black-pilled, Rob. Trust the plan. Trust the plan, Rob. I only reserve faith for one thing. And it ain't no faith in any human. I believe what I can see with my eyes. When I see evidence of corruption and I see the leadership allowing that corruption to go, I don't say, that's great, I cheer for that corruption because I trust that Bill Barr will eventually do the right thing. Sorry, ain't happening. Yeah, eventually I'll get a PC, don't worry. I want to check something real quick. Now, I think that I was one of the top 5 people in the country on this story. I spent hours upon hours. I did one live stream that was 5 hours. 5 hours. Going through the entire Ukraine scandal during the impeachment. What I'm going to do here is... I'm trying to make up my mind. Let me show you something. There's me on November 22nd, 2019. I'm going to put a link. Maybe I'll play this someday while I'm working or something, and you guys can check that video out. I only got 200 views on it. Here's me, September 21st, 2019. I did a 5-hour video where I go through all of the documentation. It's hard for me. And that one got 122 views. I go through this information and it's hard to get any response. Now, I'm not woe is me, but the point that I'm bringing this up is over a year ago, I was reporting on this publicly available evidence, right? And it wasn't getting picked up upon. And I said, and I wasn't the only one, but I think I was making this case quite clearly, that what we saw happening was the entire impeachment of Donald Trump was that he hit the raw nerve. Ukraine was one of those areas where it was just the perfect matchup of everything they accused Donald Trump of was the entire Democratic apparatus and media doing, right? So, for example, they accused Trump of colluding with Russia to steal the election. We know without a doubt that a Democratic operative named Alexandra Chalupa worked with people like a man by the name of Sergei Leshchenko, who admitted in a Financial Times article in August of 2016 that him and other Ukrainian officials were actively interfering in the U.S. election because they hated Donald Trump. This was admitted. This was printed in the mainstream news. Democratic operative working with a foreign government to interfere in our election. They released a black ledger detailing crimes of Paul Manafort, which was later discarded by a judge because it was not found to be credible. In other words, they willfully spread misinformation that was effective that resulted in the firing of Paul Manafort and an investigation into Manafort. Exactly what they accused Trump of. But it gets worse than that. We know that Joe Biden was tasked with being the point man in investigating corruption in the Ukraine. The Ukraine has traditionally been a very corrupt government, and it's something that the people of the Ukraine have struggled with, that their leaders have often just been puppets of bigger foreign powers, Russia and the United States. Basically, since the Cold War, you've had these two superpowers using Ukraine as a puppet state. So, for example, we saw that Poroshenko was the president that came before the current president. What's the current president's name? There's so many names. Let me look it up real quick. I know his name. Zelensky, yeah. I get Zelensky and Zolchevsky confused sometimes. So we have Zelensky, who is the current president. He came about because people were so tired of corruption in the Ukraine. Zelensky was basically the Jon Stewart of the country. He was a stand-up comic, and he was voted in by a huge margin. Like 75% of the people voted for him. Single issue candidate. Just, I care about you, let's end corruption. The president that came before him was a man by the name of Poroshenko. Poroshenko ousted the previous president. The previous president before Poroshenko was a Russian asset, supposedly. So Poroshenko comes in, and he's the U.S. He's using help from the U.S. And what happened was you had the U.S. under Barack Obama set up all of this stuff for Poroshenko, gave him billions upon billions of dollars if he would be an ally of the U.S. and allow the U.S. to set up a special like FBI type agency called the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of the Ukraine, the NABU. Now, this sounds very confusing, but just know this. You had what was alleged to be a pro-Russian Ukrainian president. Then Poroshenko comes in. He's a pro-U.S. Ukrainian president. And finally, the Ukrainian people have enough, and they elect a guy in Zelensky that's supposed to just be, he's a stand-up comic, but they're so tired. All the Ukrainian people wanted was a president that looked after Ukraine. Sound familiar? That's all I want as an American. A president that has America first. That's it. So everyone agreed Zelensky, oh, he's anti-corruption. This guy, he's not corrupt at all. That was the background for this story, right? So Joe Biden, when the previous president Poroshenko was in there, Biden's working directly with Poroshenko, and he was the point man on ousting all of the Russian interests, the Russian oligarchs in the Ukraine. And one of the first people he isolates as robbing the Ukraine people of billions of dollars was the head of Burisma, a man by the name of Zlochevsky. Nicholas is his American name. Nicholas Zlochevsky. He's supposedly a Ukrainian oligarch that operated at the behest of Putin and ripped off the Ukrainian people. Those aren't my words. That's not me saying Zlochevsky's corrupt. That's Joe Biden. That's Barack Obama. That's the United Nations. They all said this dude was corrupt. So at the exact same time that Joe Biden is the point man for ending this corrupt oligarch in the Ukraine, his son goes to work for the man. And as we know, Hunter Biden ended up getting $1 million from Burisma. $83,000 a month, something like that. Now, the best person reporting on this has been John Solomon. John Solomon formerly worked at The Hill, and now he works at Just the News, his own agency. Let me slide this over so you guys can see a little better. And this picture you see here was, remember, the impeachment. What it was about was basically we know that Joe Biden made a quid pro quo. He offered $1 billion. Him and Obama were giving $1 billion in aid to the Ukrainian government. But Joe Biden admitted to a speech in the Council on Foreign Relations that he issued a quid pro quo, that he told the Ukrainian President Poroshenko, if you don't fire the prosecutor that's looking into Burisma, a man by the name of Viktor Shokin, you don't get this money. Viktor Shokin happened to be looking into Joe Biden's son's company, the company that his son was on the board of directors, that had personally paid Hunter Biden $1 million. Now that, I'll get to it in a second. So because of that quid pro quo, they fired that prosecutor. And then, predictably, nothing happened. Burisma walked free. They had to pay a small fine. Hunter Biden was never investigated. End of story. Now, one of the things that I said over and over that frustrated me during the impeachment hearings, well, let me, real quick, before I get to that. The impeachment was just about Donald Trump looking into that corruption. It turns out that John Kerry's son was involved. Mitt Romney's son was involved. A bunch of other U.S. politicians on the right and the left had family members involved. And the way the scheme worked is this. The U.S. government gives energy interest in a country like Ukraine billions of tax dollars. Those companies then kick back millions of dollars to those politicians' families. Do you ever wonder how these politicians make like $100,000 a year, but they end up multimillionaires, hundreds of millions of dollars? I wonder how that happens. Well, that's because they're taking your tax dollars, and this is both sides of the ledger. Your Mitt Romneys are doing it just like your Nancy Pelosi's. They take your tax dollars and they give them to a foreign country, and then agents in that foreign country, they can't just give. So if Mitt Romney votes to send the Ukraine $1 billion, the Ukraine can't just give Mitt Romney $1 million back, but they give Mitt Romney's son, as long as he's working for an interest. That's how the scheme works. And they funnel the money through. It might not go directly from the Ukrainian government, but it might go from a Ukrainian government to a Ukrainian-owned gas industry, who then pays the son of a politician. But that money gets kicked back. That's what's going on. This is the scheme. Establishment Washington can't have that getting out. They can't have definitive proof of that. And so, everything they accused Donald Trump of, Trump was like, Trump's ham-fisted, but I like that about him. He's like, yeah, this is corrupt. Let's investigate this. He talks to the president of the Ukraine and it's like, what's up with this corrupt garbage? They fired a prosecutor that was looking at Joe Biden's son in this company, Burisma, and the president of the Ukraine's like, yeah, I know. It's garbage. That's what happened. That's what was going on. It's that simple. It sounds complicated. It's a simple story. Joe Biden admitted it. Now, before we get into the specific details, and again, I have videos from over a year ago saying the same thing, maybe even more articulate. My 5-hour video I sound like this the whole time because I lost my voice. All right. Let me just give you a definitive statement. I said over and over, I probably said this 24 times on my channel. This is a statement that every American needs to agree with. If we can't, if there are people that don't agree with this statement, I do not know how we could come together as a country. America is a great experiment, the greatest country in the history of the world. It is not a country for Americans. It's not like England's for the English and Spain's for the Spanish. We have diverse people here, but we're brought together by ideals, not by genetics. But we need to agree on certain things. Here's a statement that we all need to agree on to have a country. If a prominent member of the executive branch uses taxpayer dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor that's looking into a business that he or she's family is on the board of directors of, there should be an investigation. Period. Let me repeat that. If you have a high-ranking executive voted by the people of the United States that is using U.S. tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor who happens to be looking into that very person's family's business, there needs to be an investigation. Now you might say, but wait a minute, Rob. What if that executive's name is Trump? Yes. If President Donald Trump's son was on the board of directors in a country like China or India or France, or it doesn't matter. Let's just say France, right? If Don Jr. is on the board of directors in a company in France, and the French government sends a prosecutor to investigate that company, and Donald Trump goes to France and says, we'll give you $1 billion, but you have to fire the prosecutor looking at my son's company. Yes, Donald Trump should be investigated. Absolutely. Period. But wait a minute, Rob. What if it was Ron Paul? Didn't you really like Ron Paul? Yes. What if it was Nancy Pelosi? Yes. What if it was Joe Biden? Yes. What if it was Barack Obama? Yes. What if it's Matt Gaetz? Yes. Are you starting to get it? Anyone. I don't care their political affiliation. If you're an elected member of Congress or in the executive branch, and you are using tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor who's looking into your family's business, yes, there should be at minimum an investigation. Period. The Democratic Party said that act of wanting an investigation was itself an impeachable crime. And that's when you knew that this country was off the rail. Well, you knew long before. It's that simple. I've had people, I debated all sorts of people on this, both on my channel, off my channel, in writing, in person. No matter what they say, here are the facts. This is what they want you to believe. Actually, Joe Biden was upset that the prosecutor wasn't looking into his son's company hard enough. You get that? Joe Biden's sitting there stewing like, oh, this prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, my God, the guy's just not investigating my son hard enough. So I'm going to force him to be fired so we can get someone in there that'll really look at my son's company. That's the official story from the Democrats and the media. That's what they want you to believe. Now, do you really believe that's how a father's going to act? Have you seen how protective Joe Biden is of Hunter? Anytime someone brings up Hunter Biden, he screams at them. But we're really supposed to believe that actually Joe Biden was making it so his son got investigated even harder. That's what we're supposed to believe. Or his son's company at the very least. Okay, as unbelievable as that is, let's accept that that's true for a moment, okay? Hypothetically, that's true. So then, I guess, we're told that the reason Burisma and its founder Zlochevsky never went down was because this prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, was corrupt, right? That's what we're told. That's what the UN said. That's what the Joe Biden and Obama people said. That's what the media told us. So then the story has a happy ending, right? They got rid of Viktor Shokin. Okay? And then where did the investigation go? It went to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of the Ukraine, basically the FBI of the Ukraine. This was an organization that was completely set up and paid for by the Obama administration. An organization that reports show over and over again worked hand in hand with the Obama administration. So, for those of you trying to follow, you ready? Joe Biden was really upset that they weren't investigating his son's company hard enough. So he got the prosecutor fired that was tasked with looking into it. Now, finally, they could really investigate that. And then even better than that, Joe Biden got it switched to the NABU that was the ally of the Obama administration. So no excuses now. Finally, the investigation's in the hands of the U.S. allies. And Obama and Biden both say that Burisma's corrupt, that its founder Zlochevsky's corrupt, right? They both say that. So surely then, happy ending. The NABU that was allied with Obama now has the investigation. They investigated Zlochevsky, they brought down Burisma, and they locked Zlochevsky up for robbing the Ukrainian people and being a Putin oligarch, right? Oh, wait, what's that I'm hearing? Oh, no, the opposite happened. They buried the investigation immediately, gave Zlochevsky a slap on the wrist, and no one ever looked into Hunter Biden's connections. Now, surely, right? Did you see the fervor that Biden and all the media and all everybody knew that Zlochevsky was corrupt. Everyone was furious that this prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, wouldn't go after Zlochevsky. So they got Shokin out of the way. Finally, now they could go after Zlochevsky. They said, Joe Biden told you, we can't give $1 billion to the Ukraine while these corrupt oligarchs are running around, while prosecutors are allowing them. So surely, once Joe Biden and Barack Obama found out, wait a minute, we sent that $1 billion and they still let Zlochevsky off the hook? Surely the UN and the media and Joe Biden and Barack Obama, surely they all spoke up and said, this is corrupt. Zlochevsky escaped justice. We want our $1 billion back. Oh, wait, they didn't say a word. Let me repeat. The official Democratic narrative is this. Let me make it as clear as possible. Joe Biden was upset that a prosecutor wasn't looking at his son's company hard enough. He publicly stated that we could not give $1 billion in aid to the Ukraine as long as this corrupt oligarch was walking free and prosecutors refused to investigate him. So he used that $1 billion to force the firing of the prosecutor so that we could finally get a prosecution that would look at this obvious criminal. And then the prosecution went to the hands of Joe Biden and Barack Obama's ally, the NABU. And then they left Zlochevsky walk free, yet somehow the exact same Obama administration, Obama-Biden, who said, we can't give $1 billion to the Ukraine until you have fair prosecutors, all of a sudden they didn't care. When it was their allies that left the very person they were calling corrupt go. Now you might say, that doesn't make sense. One, why would it make sense that Joe Biden would want his son investigated more? Second, even if that was the case, wouldn't he have freaked out when he found out that his allies in the NABU, after he gave them $1 billion, still refused to prosecute this guy and finally buried the investigation? Don't you think that him and Obama would have spoke up and said, whoa, whoa, whoa? Don't you think? Why didn't they? None of that story makes sense. You know what does make sense? Joe Biden didn't want his son being investigated. So he forced the firing of a prosecutor that was actually investigating his son. And then he got it in the hands of his allies that did exactly what Joe Biden and Obama wanted. Bury the investigation. And then they impeached Donald Trump because he was starting to uncover that wound. That's what makes sense. That's the only thing that makes sense. And we have proof of it. John Solomon, the best reporter on that. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who is part of the deep state apparatus involved in this. Remember, we now know that Yovanovitch, another person from the State Department that testified, her State Department in Kiev, in Ukraine, was actually spying on John Solomon and Dan Bongino and Greg Jarrett and Sarah Carter and Don Jr. That's right. A State Department embassy was spying on American journalists who they felt leaned the other way on a story. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, I'm just going to read what John Solomon writes here after Vindman testified. He says, and I quote, let me make sure this is... Okay. I honor and applaud Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's service to his country. He's a hero. I respect his decision to testify. But I also know that liberties that Lieutenant Colonel Vindman fought in the battlefield to preserve permit a free and honest debate in America, one that can't be muted by color of uniform or crushing power of the state. So I want to exercise my right to debate Vindman about the testimony he gave about me. You see, under oath to Congress, he asserted that all factual elements of my columns at the Hill about the Ukraine were false, except maybe my grammar. Here are his exact words. Quote, I think all the key elements were false, Vindman testified. Representative Zeldin pressed him about what he meant. Just so I understand what you mean, you're saying key elements. Are you referring to everything John Solomon stated or some of it? Quote, all of the elements that I just laid out for you, the criticisms of corruption were false. Were there more items in there, frankly, Congressman? I don't recall. I haven't looked at the article in quite some time, but his grammar might have been right. And this is back to Solomon. Such testimony may have been injurious to my reputation, one earned during 30 years of impactful reporting for news organizations that included the Associated Press, the Washington Post, the Washington Times, and the Daily Beast and Newsweek. And so Vindman, here are 28 primary factual elements in my Ukraine columns, complete with attribution and links to sourcing. Please tell me if any of this was factually wrong. Now, let me stop here. I'm going to put a link to me going through this entire article. And maybe I'll share this later. It's 2 hours and 2.5 hours of me going step by step through every source in this article. So I'm not going to go through it now. But I just want to hit the high point. Links in the chat there. And I'll play this for you tomorrow, maybe while I'm working. Fair enough? So during the day, look, I won't be live. I have work, but I'll play this for you. Where am I at? Here we go. What's going on here? There we go. The key fact is whether or not Viktor Shokin was actually investigating. The Biden team, the Obama team, both said that Viktor Shokin, this prosecutor, remember, Biden admitted he used a quid pro quo to get this prosecutor fired. Fact 6. The Ukrainian investigation of Hunter Biden's employer, Burisma Holdings, escalated in February of 2016 when Shokin's office raided the home company of Zlochevsky and seized his property. Here's the announcement of the raid. This is from a Ukrainian news source. Ready? The Ukrainian news agency. This is February 4th, 2016. Quote, the movable and immovable property of former Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources Zlochevsky in the Ukraine has been seized, according to the press service of the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine. The PGO filed a petition to the court to arrest the property of the ex-Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of Ukraine, the Deputy Secretary of National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Zlochevsky, from which arrest was withdrawn, and other property he actually uses, namely housing estate with a total area of 922 acres, blah, blah, blah. The PGO clarifies that the court satisfied the petition on February 2nd, 2016. Quote, thus, none of the objects movable and immovable property which are seized under the previous court ruling had not been excluded from Zlochevsky's property. Now, why is this important? At the same time, they're telling you in February that Joe Biden and Barack Obama are issuing this quid pro quo. They're saying that Shokin, this prosecutor, wasn't doing anything to investigate Zlochevsky. In the United States, we have investigations such as you saw the investigations into Trump and all of his allies. You have investigations into Hillary Clinton, investigations into Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, all of these other people. How many times do we consider things credible investigations before they get to the step of seizing assets? In fact, in the United States, if we have an investigation, for example, let's say that you heard tomorrow that the Southern District of New York had seized all of Don Jr.'s assets. What would you say? Would you say, sounds like the Southern District of New York's they're not investigating Don Jr. at all? Is that what you would say? You would say, my God, this investigation's really ramping up. They actually took the step of freezing his assets. That's a huge step in an investigation. It is beyond dispute that Viktor Shokin did that. That the prosecutor office, the PGO, that Viktor Shokin was the head of, the investigation into Burisma, he actually seized the assets in February 2nd, 2016 of Zlochevsky. The media, Obama's team, Biden's team, all of them want you to believe that Viktor Shokin was doing nothing in this investigation. Despite the fact we could see that he seized his assets. It's a lie. Now let's look at the timeline. I think this article says it more. Let's move on just a couple seconds. Fact 7. Shokin was making plans in February. So I just showed you. Shokin, February 2nd, seizes assets. Next, Shokin was making plans in February 2016 to interview Hunter Biden. You could read his interview with me here and his sworn depositions here. Fact 8, Burisma's American representatives, their names Blue Star agencies, which we'll get to in the news of today, lobbied the State Department in late February 2016 to help end the corruption allegations against the company, and specifically invoked Hunter Biden's name as a reason to intervene. You could read State's official account here. Here's Blue Star. Oh, great. Screw me over. You just have to trust me that it's there. But we have their actual emails that they were trying to get in contact with Biden and Obama's State Department. Remember, Joe Biden and Barack Obama are saying this company is corrupt. Yet they're working with Blue Star Strategies, the representative of Burisma. Fact 9, Joe Biden boasted in a 2018 videotape he forced Ukraine's president to fire Shokin March 2016 by withholding $1 billion in aid. You could view the tape here. Shokin was told in interviews with me and ABC News that he was told he was fired because Joe Biden was unhappy with the investigation, that it wasn't shut down. Now that's all I'll go through in this article, but here's the timeline. February 2016, all of a sudden, it looks like this prosecutor Shokin's getting serious. He starts seizing the assets of Burisma's founder. Immediately, the lawyers for Burisma contact the State Department. They use Hunter Biden's name. They're like, whoa, can you guys in Barack Obama and Biden's State Department, can you do something? Can you intervene here? Hunter Biden works here. Coincidentally, less than a month later, Joe Biden flies to the Ukraine and says, we're not going to give you this $1 billion unless you fire this prosecutor. Prosecutor ramps up the investigation, seizes assets. The guy who got his assets seized, lawyers start throwing around the name Hunter Biden to the State Department. And Hunter Biden's daddy comes to the rescue less than a month later, forces the firing of the prosecutor. End of the story, nothing ever happened to Burisma. Zlochevsky gets all of his property back. End of story. That's it. It proves that they're lying. Now, let's go to today's story. Oh, crap. Screwed up there. From the New York Post. Now, remember the story I just told you. You getting there? So the New York Post has more evidence on this. So they write a story today. Smoking gun email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businesses. All right, you ready? Let's read the article. You ready? Let me click on the link. Let me do that again. You ready? Just going to go to the New York Post here, right? This isn't Alex Jones. It's not David Icke. New York Post, newspaper that's been around over 100 years. We're going to read their reporting from today, right? I'll click on the link here on Twitter. Warning, this link may be unsafe. The link you are trying to access has been identified by Twitter or our partners as being potentially spammy or unsafe in accordance with Twitter's URL policy. This link could fall into any of the numbered categories: malicious links that could steal personal info, spammy links that mislead or disrupt people, violent or misleading content that could lead to real-world harm, certain categories of content if posted directly to Twitter or violation. Just in case you wondered if the stories were true that Twitter was censoring it, there you go. Thank you, Sandwich Savant. Sorry I've been missing the chat. I've been going. So we know now that the original story was false. We know exactly what they accused Trump of issuing a quid pro quo. Joe Biden admitted that he did a quid pro quo. He said it was because the prosecutor wasn't looking at his son's company hard enough. We now know that's not true. We know that actually Shokin had just then seized the assets. So Shokin seizes the assets. Burisma's lawyers contact Obama's State Department and says, Joe Biden's son works here, do something. Joe Biden immediately flies over, issues a quid pro quo, gets the prosecutor Shokin fired. The investigation gets to the hand of the Obama-Biden allies in the NABU, and they successfully bury the investigation. Joe Biden claims all along he didn't know. He never talked to his son. He never talked to his son about his business dealings. Now imagine that. Joe Biden's tasked with investigating or leading the Ukraine to investigate this corrupt company Burisma. He knows that his son works for Burisma, but he never brought it up to his son. Excuse me. I'm trying to do a video, ladies. You want to come say hi? All right. Look at the camera. Tell him I'm sorry for interrupting Dad's video. You too. Come here. Come on, chunk. No, you don't want to come up. The other one's smaller. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come up. Come on. Oh, whoop. Okay. Sorry about that brief dog interruption. All right? So let's read this story today. I'll try to give little comments. We'll just go through it, right? But Joe Biden claims, does anyone believe that? It would be like this. Let's say that your dad's charged with investigating the mafia in New York City, and you go to work for the mafia. You really think your dad is just like, oh, son, you work for the mafia. We'll never talk about this. Of course not. I know I am tiny today. Oh, wait. I got a couple. All right. So this is direct proof that Joe Biden lied. Now, keep in mind, why wasn't the media covering this story? Why was it just John Solomon? What they did, I just showed you. I linked you to the Ukrainian news agency proving that Solomon was accurate. By the way, those 28 reasons that Solomon gives, again, I'll show you the video tomorrow. Every one of them are sourced. Every one of them have independent outsourcing. Yet the media in the United States said John Solomon's a lie. They attacked a fellow journalist. No one wanted to cover the story except John Solomon and a handful of other good ones. Why is that, do you think? Why is the media silent today on the fact that Twitter and Facebook are censoring this story? Isn't that odd? Almost like they're not really media people. They're just propagandists for the Democratic Party. Let's read the story real quick. So the claim is, Joe Biden, the way that the media said, oh, there's nothing to see here. Joe Biden said he never talked to his son about his job. End of story, right? Well, now we see that that's most likely a lie. As you could have guessed, but now we have proof in the form of an email. Hunter Biden introduced his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, to a top executive at a Ukrainian energy firm less than a year before the elder Biden pressured government officials in Ukraine into firing a prosecutor who was investigating the companies, according to emails obtained by the Post. The never-before-revealed meeting is mentioned in a message of appreciation that Vladimir Porzhasky, sorry about the gross mispronunciation, an advisor on the board of Burisma, allegedly sent Hunter Biden on April 17, 2015, about a year after Hunter joined the Burisma board and a reported salary of $50,000 a month. Quote from the email, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and pleasure," the email reads. An earlier email from May 2014 also shows Porzhasky. Now you're hitting my camera, girls. What are you doing? It also shows Porzhasky, reportedly Burisma's number 3 executive, asking Hunter for, quote, advice on how you could use your influence, end quote, on the company's behalf. The blockbuster correspondence, which flies in the face of Joe Biden's claim that he, quote, never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings, is contained in a massive trove of data recovered from a laptop computer. The computer was dropped off at a repair shop in Biden's home state of Delaware in April 2019. Other material extracted from the computer includes a raunchy 12-minute video that appears to show Hunter, who's admitted to struggling with addiction problems, smoking crack while engaged in a sex act with an unidentified woman, as well as numerous other sexually explicit images. The customer who brought in the water-damaged MacBook Pro for repair never paid for the service or retrieved it or the hard drive of which its contents were stored, according to the shop owner, who said he tried repeatedly to contact the client. The shop owner couldn't positively identify the customer as Hunter Biden, but said the laptop bore a sticker from the Beau Biden Foundation, named after Hunter's late brother. Photos of the Delaware federal subpoena given to the Post show that both the computer and hard drive were seized by the FBI in December, after the shop owner says he alerted the feds to their existence. So here we have an actual picture of the subpoena, proving that there was a computer, as is alleged, and it was taken by the FBI. Now, does that mean that these emails are accurate? No. But it does prove that this computer was picked up. So when the media today is telling you, oh, this is all a lie, it's all a lie, it's all a lie. Well, clearly not all of it. There was a subpoena to pick up this computer. We'll get to more of the media here in a second. But before turning over the gear, the shop owner says he made a copy of the hard drive and later gave it to former Mayor Rudy Giuliani's lawyer. Steve Bannon, former advisor to President Trump, told the Post about the existence of the hard drive in late September, and Giuliani provided the Post with a copy of it on Sunday. Less than 8 months after Porzhasky thanked Hunter Biden for the introduction to his dad, the then vice president admittedly pressured Ukrainian President Poroshenko and Prime Minister Yatsenyuk into getting rid of the prosecutor general Viktor Shokin by threatening to withhold $1 billion U.S. loan guarantee during December 2015. Quote from Joe Biden, "I looked at them and I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money," Biden infamously bragged to the Council on Foreign Relations. "Well, son of a bitch, he got fired," says Biden. Shokin has said at the time of his firing in March 2016, he had made specific plans to investigate Burisma that included interrogations and other crime investigation procedures into all members of the executive board, including Hunter Biden. Joe Biden's insisted that the U.S. wanted Shokin removed over corruption concerns, which were shared by the EU. Meanwhile, an email dated May 12, 2014, shortly after Hunter Biden joined the Burisma board, shows Porzhasky attempting to get him to use his political advantage to help the company. The message had the subject line, quote, urgent issue, and was also sent to Hunter Biden's business partner, Devin Archer, who also sat in the Burisma board. Porzhasky said that, the representatives of new authorities in power tend to quite aggressively approach Zlochevsky unofficially with the aim to obtain cash from him. NZ isn't identified in the emails, but appears to be a reference to founder Zlochevsky, whose first name in Ukrainian version of Nicholas. When the alleged shakedown failed, quote, they proceeded with concrete actions in the form of one or more pretrial proceedings, Porzhasky wrote. We urgently need your advice on how you could use your influence to convey a message, signal, etc., to stop what we consider to be politically motivated actions. In other words, Burisma, the company that Joe Biden was calling corrupt, hired Joe Biden's son and then immediately started to say, hey, we're being investigated. Hunter, how can you use your influence and your dad to stop these investigations? Well, they got their money's worth because it had eventually happened. Hunter Biden responded by saying he was with Archer in Doha and asked for more information about the formal accusations being made against Burisma. Quote, who is ultimately behind these attacks on the company? Who in the current interim government could put an end to such attacks, he added. Because he needs to know who his daddy needs to talk to. The exchange came the same day that Burisma announced that it expanded its board of directors by adding Hunter Biden, who was put in charge of its, quote, legal unit and will provide support for the company among international organizations, according to a news release that's since been scrubbed from Burisma's website. Hunter Biden actually joined the board in April 2014. His lawyer said last year that Hunter was, quote, not a member of the management team, adding, at no time was Hunter in charge of the company's legal affairs. About 4 months after Hunter Biden's correspondence with Brzezinski, Archer forwarded Hunter Biden an email chain with the subject line, quote, tax raise impact on Burisma production, which included Brzezinski saying that the Ukrainian cabinet had submitted new tax legislation in the county's parliament. Quote, if enacted, this law would kill the entire private gas production sector in the bud, Brzezinski wrote. In the September 24, 2004 email, Brzezinski also said he was, quote, going to share this information with the U.S. Embassy here in Kiev, as well as with the office of Mr. Amos Hochstein in the States. At the time, Hochstein was the State Department's newly appointed special envoy and coordinator for international energy affairs. So you get this? This was the guy who Obama's State Department appointed as a special envoy to coordinate with energy affairs around the world. In December 2017, the Naftogaz Group, Ukraine's state-owned energy company, announced that Hochstein had joined the company as director. But on Monday, he announced his resignation. Quote, the company is forced to spend endless amounts of time combating political pressure and efforts by oligarchs to enrich themselves through questionable transactions, Hochstein wrote in an op-ed published by the Kiev Post. So isn't that nice? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Hochstein, he's working for the Obama administration as a special envoy in energy affairs. He's contacting this corrupt board, Burisma, and then all of a sudden, he's now on the board of directors of the official Ukrainian State Energy Board. In addition to denying that he's spoken to Hunter Biden about his overseas business dealings, Joe Biden has repeatedly denied conflict of interest or wrongdoing by either of them involving Burisma. Last February, he got into a testy appearance on NBC's Today Show when co-host Savannah Guthrie questioned whether it was wrong for Hunter to take that position, knowing it was really because the company wanted access to you. Joe says, well, that's not true. You're saying things that you don't know what you're talking about. Here's a nice picture of Hunter. There's Hunter. Note the crack pipe. We'll keep going. We're almost finished. Last December, Joe Biden also lashed out during a Democratic primary town hall event in Iowa, where a man accused him of sending Hunter to Ukraine to, quote, to get a job and to work for a gas company. He had no experience with gas or nothing in order to get access to the president. Biden responds, you're a damn liar, man. That's not true, and no one has ever said that, Biden fumed. Biden then continued berating the man as he stepped forward, calling the man fat, and challenged him to do push-ups together, man. The FBI referred to questions about the seizure of the laptop and hard drive to the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, where a spokesman said, quote, my office can neither confirm nor deny the existence of an investigation. Hunter Biden's lawyer refused to comment, but instead attacked Giuliani. Quote, he has been pushing widely discredited conspiracy theories about the Biden family, openly relying on actors tied to Russian intelligence. Brzezinski and the Joe Biden campaign did not return response for request. Hochstein could not be reached. If that's true, it proves Joe Biden lied, that he actually did have contact with not only his son, but actually with one of the board of directors in Burisma, the third in command. And if he lied about that, what else did he lie about? It also shows, if these emails are accurate, that indeed the reason that Hunter Biden was hired was because they wanted influence. Now, sometimes stories come up and you say, let's be honest. Are me and you special? Do we have special access to things? Do we have access to FBI investigations, criminal investigations? Do we have access to insiders? I don't know about any of you. I don't have any of that. But oftentimes you can see the credibility of the people reporting on things to help you assess the situation. And does the story make sense? And you could get a long way doing. For example, I'm not an epidemiologist or a virologist. I don't have access to anyone who's in one of those fields. But I know that it doesn't make sense for the experts in the medical field to tell me, if I go to a Donald Trump rally, I get and spread COVID. But if I walk across the street at the 10 times bigger Black Lives Matter rally, I can't get it or spread it. That's a lie. That doesn't make sense. And I could tell just because it's so outrageous. The same is true here. Has anyone given one plausible explanation for why this company would have hired Hunter Biden? if it's not to peddle influence from his dad? Anyone. I'll accept any answer. Did Hunter Biden speak the language of the Ukraine? No. Did he have expertise in the natural gas field? No. Did he have any personal connections to anyone on the board of directors? These pro-Russian oligarchs? Doesn't appear so. We know. You know. I know. The FBI knows. Donald Trump knows. The media knows. And the Democrats know. Every single person with half a brain knows exactly why Hunter Biden was hired. We all know it. We absolutely know it. It's because his dad was the vice president. And they were going to say, hey man, we're giving you a lot of money. Time to cash in that favor. Tell your dad to step up and make sure our company has the investigation into it dropped. That's what it was. Everybody knows it. We all know it. Again, was Hunter Biden a Rhodes Scholar? Was he someone with an incredible work ethic? No. He was a drug addict who'd been dishonorably discharged or at least drummed out of whatever, I think he was in the Navy, but whatever military branch he was in. Now, let me take a second here to take a step back and say something that's not going to be popular with a bunch of people here listening. Okay? I don't care that Hunter Biden smoked crack. I don't care at all. I don't care that he bought hookers. And what I mean I don't care is, I don't think that that is a reason not to vote for Joe Biden. I don't. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I ain't voting for Joe Biden, don't get me wrong. There's tons of other reasons, including in this very story. But the fact that he had a troubled son, I don't think's a reason. I don't care. I don't care if Barack Obama's brother seemingly had some problems. I don't care if Donald Trump's family has problems. I don't care if Barack Obama's daughter's gotten into some problems. None of that. I literally, the story to me, I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care about any of this. However, two things, and the second's the most important. But one, it's not my standard that matters. It's the Democrats, it's the medias, it's academias, all of my friends. How many times did you hear the word compromat after 2016? How many times did you hear it? And the idea was this: oh, these nefarious Russians, what they do is they find you in a compromising situation and they find pictures or audio or video of you cheating on your wife or doing drugs or buying a hooker or doing something nefarious like having hookers pee on you, as was alleged by Donald Trump. And then they get access to that and they're like, Mr. President, we have access to this video of you doing some very troubling things. Now you're our puppet or we'll release these videos. Right? Isn't that the accusation? Isn't that exactly why everyone cared about the P dossier? The P story? Oh, compromat. Who knows what Russia has on Trump? Right? Wasn't that the argument? Well, Puck, that's true. The fact that that maybe Joe Biden was being hypocritical and was judging other people for using drugs while his own son was, of course, that's hypocritical, but that's small potatoes. But in this context, what I'm talking about is, if that was a reason, the fact that if this P tape existed to question whether or not Trump could be president because other countries had leverage over him, why wouldn't it be just as troubling? That P tape never existed, we now know. But we see the pictures of Hunter Biden smoking crack. We know that he's been busted for drugs and for prostitution. So it's entirely in the realm of possibility that China or North Korea or Iran or Russia have these photos, have this video evidence. So can we trust Joe Biden as president? If they contact him and say, Mr. President, we have compromising photos of your son with illegal hookers using illegal drugs. Either you vote this way on this particular bill, or we're going to release these photos. Now, for me, that's not an issue, but it's not my standard that matters. Isn't that what the media said was a big problem? Isn't that what the Democrats said was a big problem? The only difference is the Trump story was a lie. The Hunter Biden story is true. So that's one. But number two, the real reason that all of this matters, it's not what Hunter Biden did. It's what did Joe Biden do? Joe Biden issued a quid pro quo to fire the prosecutor that was looking into his son. Even if you say, I'm not so sure about that, there is enough public evidence to warrant an investigation, period. If it was Don Jr., and he worked for a company that his dad said was corrupt, that all of the first world nations said was corrupt, and Don Jr. got a job there as on the board of directors, and then Trump Sr. used his position as president to issue a quid pro quo with $1 billion tax dollars to fire the prosecutor looking into his son's company, you could be damn sure Trump would have been impeached like that. There would have been a never-ending investigation into that. But when it's Biden, all of a sudden the same media outlets, remember, they impeached Trump over a phone call. That's the problem. I'm not going to sit here and focus. I'm going to tell you right now, I had a problem with drinking at a point in my life. I did. Honest to goodness, I don't like to see anyone suffering through addiction problems. I don't. And I think it's a mistake to just be like, oh, Hunter Biden's a crackhead, blah, blah, blah. It's fine for us to do it. It's fine, but it would be a mistake for Donald Trump. Trump's attack needs to be, what did Joe Biden do about this? That's the issue. So when you hear all these leftists saying, oh, well, Hunter Biden's not running for president. Exactly. I don't care what Hunter did. What I care is that his dad forced a prosecutor to be fired using our tax dollars. He actually did. Remember, Trump was fired for hypothetically doing a quid pro quo, which they were never able to prove. Trump was impeached for that, for a hypothetical quid pro quo, and looking into a real crime. Joe Biden admitted to a quid pro quo. It's on tape. And we know that it resulted in a prosecutor getting fired that had just seized assets of the company that Hunter Biden was on the board of directors for. And that case was eventually dropped after the prosecutor was fired. All of that's beyond dispute. Even if you're the biggest Joe Biden fan in the world, you could be like, okay, I think Joe Biden's innocent. I don't think it was shady. But yeah, I could see there needs to be an investigation. Joe Biden himself, if he was innocent, if he was an honest person, would say, okay, I realize this looks bad. Anytime you have someone in my position that used tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor that was looking at my son's company, that might look bad, but I swear that wasn't what it was about. By all means, investigate. But instead, it's the exact opposite. He flips out anytime a journalist dares to ask a question. And the other journalists take the hint. Oh, okay, we won't ask about it. Remember, Ukrainian interference in September of 2019, there was impeachment over it. That was the biggest story in the country. Oh my God, Trump needs to be removed from office. Impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. What was going on in the Ukraine? Now, what are they saying? It's a distraction. It's just a distraction. Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks Achilles. Lisa, thank you. Moonglow, Frat. Tigger, thank you all so much. Schwill, thanks. That's right, Janet. If Trump loses the election, all of this will get buried. Now, what were we talking about? What was the biggest story in the country for 3 years? Foreign election interference, Trump improperly using his office to influence decisions that could jeopardize him. I talked about this a lot. They said that Trump was, quote, using his position as president to attack his political opponent, and that was, quote, election interference. That was the claim. But I told you, which I haven't heard anyone else in the country talk about, anyone, that there's multiple types of election interference. You could seek to influence an election by getting dirt on your opponent. That's one way you could do it. You could also seek to influence an election by preventing dirt about you from being released. That's also improperly influencing an election. So, theoretically, you could be, let's just say Trump. Trump could interfere by theoretically, illegally using his position to force investigations into his opponent. That hypothetically could be a problem with the election. However, Trump could also illegally use his position to prevent an investigation into him. That's what Joe Biden did. So if we're concerned about election interference, that's what the Democrats and Joe Biden did. A year before the election, they were preventing information coming out that showed their corruption. Now, the last thing I'll say on this direct point is this. This is not a Joe Biden story. Yes, he is the Democratic candidate. He is central to it. It proves his corruption. However, this information, did you see when I was reporting on this from? September 2019? November 2019? I knew about it then. And you know what that means? The media knew about it. The Democrats that voted to impeach Trump knew about it. Mitt Romney that voted to impeach Trump, he knew about it. All of the media, all of the people that carried on this impeachment farce that was designed not to create and obtain justice, but to obstruct justice. That's what it was about. The Democrats and the establishment are making investigating their crimes a crime itself. In other words, they could break the law. They could use your tax dollars for quid pro quos. They could bury investigations. They could illegally leak information to damage their opponents. They could spy on their opponents illegally. They could do all of that, and it's fine. But the moment you want to investigate that, that itself is a crime according to them. Starting to see a pattern? It's the same way with the Joe Biden voters, the Democratic voters could mob your house. They could burn your house to the ground. They could burn businesses down. They could threaten you. They could attack you. And that's all okay. But the moment you arm yourself to defend yourself like the McCloskeys, now you're the criminal. It's always that way. They are allowed to break the law with impunity, do whatever they want to you, but you investigating them or preventing them from breaking the law, that in itself is the crime. This is the pattern they use over and over and over again. Anyone, I don't care who you are, or who you're talking to, your friend, your family member, a journalist, a Democratic politician, a Republican politician, I don't care. If they don't think that there's a credible reason to investigate Joe Biden over the fact that he admittedly used a quid pro quo to fire a prosecutor looking at his son's company, they're liars. They're burying the truth. It's not that they're ignorant of the truth. And you know how I know they're not ignorant? Because I knew. And I'm no one special. So before you let them write it off as, okay, well, maybe Joe Biden did something. It's not just Joe Biden. The entire Democratic Party knew, and they impeached the president to stop this information from coming public. And now they're using their allies in the media and in tech to continue to censor this information. Today, that's happening right now as we speak. And I'm a pessimist, and you're not going to like hearing this. I think the Democrats will successfully steal the election. You might disagree with me, fine. By the way, just because I say that doesn't mean I'm not busting my hump to try to help Trump get elected. That's what I'm doing. I put out content. I volunteer for the Trump team. I go to Republican things. I host debates. I have a radio channel. I do debates with people. I talk to people in my real life. Like, I'm doing everything I can. But I think they're going to steal the election. And when they do, they're going to bury this. And that, by the way, if you watch my radio show Saturday, that's not going to be the end of it. They're not just going to bury it. They're going to criminally go after Trump and everyone associated with him. Because what they want you to know is this, and it's not just the Democratic Party, it's the establishment. It's the establishment that have been in the Republican Party, those people, your Romneys, your McCains, your Grahams, your Flakes, your Rubios, your Paul Ryans, and then the Democrats, almost the entirety of the party. And the CIA, your Comeys, your Brennans, your Clappers, the FBI, the State Department. Did you see on the impeachment? How many times did George Kent or Yovanovitch or one of them say something like this? Well, Trump went against established foreign policy. Trump is the established foreign policy. He is the leader, duly elected, of the executive branch. He sets the foreign policy. Not you. You serve under him. But you could see their arrogance. How dare he go against what we want to do? That's what this is about. They want you to know. Don't you dare come after us. Don't think you're going to run and come after. Chuck Schumer told you, they'll find 6 ways from Sunday at getting you. You got to be fearful of them. Don't you dare ever run someone that thinks they'll come after us again. Did you see what happened to that last guy, Trump? We buried him. We attacked him for the entire 4 years he was there. We ruined his life. We smeared him in every possible way. Then we successfully held a coup. He didn't get reelected, and now we're going after him criminally. And if you try to run against us, we'll do the same to you. We'll ruin your life. We'll ruin your family's life. We'll do it all. It's not enough for them to just win the election. And that's what's happening today. The media could have done like they do every other time. The litany of scandals we see coming from the Obama administration or from Joe Biden. Like, for example, we found out just the other week that Hunter Biden received what? $2.5 million or something from the mayor of Moscow's wife. Now, the entire media class has told us for years and years and years, oh my God, if you're receiving evidence from Russian oligarchs or money from Russian oligarchs, that's a huge problem. All of a sudden, the Democratic candidate for president's son receiving millions of dollars from a Russian oligarch, what did they do? They just refused to talk about it. Whatever. And it's effective because conservatives have lost the culture war. They control all of the institutions that shape the narrative. They control social media. They control academia. They control the entertainment industry. They control the mainstream media. So they just ignore the story. And it works. It's effective. Why did they do something different today? They could have just let the story go. And yes, I would have been talking about it and you would have been talking about it. But the average person, we already know. That's the terrible nature of it. We already know. The average person that needs to hear this information, they'd have never heard it. But by censoring it, they've actually blown the story up. Why would they do that? Do you think they're dumb? Maybe. I think there's another reason. They want you to know you ain't going to do shit about it. You're their slave. That's what they want you to know. You ain't going to do nothing. What are you going to do? Huh? Complain about it? You gonna listen to Rob? What am I gonna do? Let's not ask you, what am I gonna do about it? Nothing. Sit here and complain and talk about how it's gonna be the end of the country. And that corrupt oligarchs, this is fascism, corrupt businesses working with government to control the flow of information and to digitally erase anyone who disagrees with them. This is fascism. What am I gonna do about it? Nothing. Make more videos using their platform that they could censor me whenever they want. That's what I'm going to do. Go tell people to vote, but they'll steal the election anyways. So what's that going to do? That's what's going on here. Make no mistake about it. Today was the shot in the air. The beginning of the war. The war had already began, but it was behind the scenes. This is it. They're letting you know there ain't nothing you could do. Oh, you can vote for Jim Jordan? Is that what you're going to do? You can vote for Mike Lee? You can vote for a bunch of Republicans that are going to come on TV all the time and say, oh, we're going to get those social media outlets. We're going to get them. We're going to revoke those 230 protections. Need I remind you that at one point, Republicans controlled the presidency, the Senate, and the House. What did they do? They do anything to rein this in? Do you think they didn't know back then about conservatives being censored? You think they didn't know about social media being in the bag and just an arm of the establishment in the Democratic Party? You think they didn't know? They knew. They chose not to do anything. Oh, and many of those Republicans are getting big, big money, aren't they? From these same social media companies that they claim to be regulating. Now, I don't know. It's 8:09. I don't have cable, but Tucker Carlson's on right now. I have no way of knowing this. I've been on with you. I'll bet that's Tucker's story tonight, his lead story, because he's been one of the only people that's been good on it. Where are they? Where are the Republicans? Josh Hawley was out there today. He said every one of my Republican colleagues need to condemn this. I showed you, you saw Twitter censoring it, Facebook censoring it. They're removing accounts. They're not allowing people to link to it. They're putting warnings up to the New York Post story. Now, I know I'm a little scatterbrained here, but look, let's be clear. What was the denial? So what did the Biden camp do today? They put a lid on, of course. Now, this story's been out there for over a year. Has our media forced Joe Biden to answer any questions about this? Nope. Not at all. So they put a lid on today, and then a bunch of course, I'd go through my Twitter. I'm not going to do it, but I could. And I was tweeting things like this. Go to this, right? This was the Democratic response in droves on Twitter. Every person I saw that leaned left. I can't believe that Haberman from the New York Times, I can't believe she put a link up to that New York Post story. New York Post, that's rag. This is clearly garbage. It's garbage. No one share this story. This story's garbage. It's obviously a lie. Oh, it's clearly a lie. Oh, it's just a lie. It's just a lie. That's what everyone told you. To which my response is, don't let them this is what they'll go through. First, they'll say it's a lie. Then they'll say that, oh, it's illegally hacked, so you can't look at it. And then eventually they'll say, well, even if it's true, it's not a big deal. That's where we're going. This is the exact same pattern that the Steele dossier followed. I said in October of 2017, if unverified opposition research from one political party was used by the FBI to spy on another political party, it was the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. Not only do we now know that happened, it was 10 times worse, as I've gone through over and over on my channel. But the responses that I got was this. One, there's no way the FBI would ever do that. You have no proof that the Steele dossier was used. Then once proof that it was used came out, they were like, well, if they used it, then they had to verify the information. There's no way the FBI would not verify the information. And then once it came out they didn't verify, they said, well, even if it was used and it wasn't verified, it was only a small part and they would have got the warrant anyways. And then once it turned out that wasn't true, they said, who cares? Their admission right now that this story must be a lie. Notice, no one's out there saying, well, even if this happened, it's no big deal. No one's saying that, right? They're saying, well, it must be a lie. Okay, that's an admission. They're admitting to you, based on their immediate reaction. They know deep down that if this is true, it's a bombshell. So a week or two from now, don't let them try to bullshit you and say, oh, it's no big deal, it's no big deal. If we find out that it's definitely true. So that's where we're going. Just like that, first it'll be there's no proof of truth. Notice they didn't say no one said. So all these media outlets then come out and they're like, well, the computer, who is this shop owner in Delaware? He seems suspicious. What really happened here? Blah, 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 blah. That's where they're going. No one said the emails aren't true. Let's say for a minute that they're right. And I agree. It sounds like a crazy story. The shop owner, did he illegally copy? We'll get to all that in a second. But it sounds crazy. Right? I'll agree. It sounds like a crazy situation. We know that the FBI took a computer from this shop owner. We saw the subpoena in the New York Post story. So even if he was a funky, weird guy, he clearly had a computer that the FBI took. I don't care if he's the biggest Trump supporter in the world. Why does that matter? Now, I read to you why Twitter said that this violated their terms of service. And what a lot of people are saying is it's because it was hacked. Saying something's hacked isn't saying it wasn't true. So what the media is trying to say is, because this was potentially obtained illegally, which I don't know the laws of Delaware. I don't know. Is it illegal for him to make copies and give it to someone? Maybe, maybe not. That has no relevance on whether or not the information is accurate. But let's say they're right, that this was illegally obtained. So now all of a sudden, the Washington Post and all these social media places in the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC, they don't want to report on evidence of something that was illegally obtained. Didn't 2 weeks ago we just go through Trump's tax return story? Was that legally obtained? No, it wasn't, was it? It wasn't at all. And not one social media post. On Facebook, I watched dozens of my left-leaning friends share that tax story over and over and over again. Facebook never stepped in and said, whoa, these tax documents were legally obtained. Never once. We didn't have media people saying, well, this is suspect. How do we know these tax records are accurate? Not once did we have that happening. But now these same people all of a sudden are like, well, we can't just report innuendo. We don't know if it's true. Don't know if it's true, says the same people that pushed the now debunked Russia collusion hoax over and over and over again. They called Brett Kavanaugh a gang rapist with literally zero proof in a story that didn't even make sense. And they reported every word of it. Illegal leaks that came from the FBI, that came from Mueller's team, illegal tax documents from Trump that were released, unmasking and illegal links of people like Flynn. Over and over, and they report on every single one of them. But the one time that it's against the Democrats and Joe Biden, they're like, oh, we can't report this. We can't report it. They're not journalists. They're propagandists. The social media companies aren't publishers or aren't platforms. They're publishers. I've put videos out 2 years ago that said that the 230 protections need to be revoked, that it's clear that they're acting as publishers and not platforms. I said that 2 things should happen if they lose their protections. 2. And look how ahead of the curve. Again, up to 2 years ago I was saying this. 1, if they spur someone to, if something is published on their platform that is libelous, slanderous, or leads someone to commit violence that harms someone else, and they were aware of it, they should be held civilly liable. Now, the key factor is, were they aware of it? If me with 30 people watching says something and they don't catch it, I'm not saying they should be held accountable of that. But if I'm reported thousands of times, like for example, Carlos Maza was. Carlos Maza from Vox, who said, throw milkshakes at conservatives, assault them, don't leave them gather in public safely. That's what Carlos Maza said. That tweet was flagged thousands of times and reported. Twitter left it up. And then Andy Ngo, a conservative journalist, had milkshakes shown at him while he was punched and kicked. And perhaps there was cement in some of the milkshakes. I don't know if they ever resolved that. They should have been held. They chose as a publisher. They allow left-wing calls to violence to stay up. So therefore, as a publisher, they should be held responsible. That's the first thing. The second thing I said, which I didn't hear other people saying, is they should be held to campaign finance contribution laws, because they are just giving free advertising and free services to the Democratic Party in an election year. I said that 2 years ago in the 2018 election. Now you're finally seeing Josh Hawley say that today. Okay, Lisa, so it's not illegal. You have to make copies. Right, Puck. That's exactly what I'm saying. The New York Times reporter whose paper just published Trump's leaked tax returns, which is a crime, questions the sourcing on the story about Biden. Exactly. These aren't journalists. They're propagandists. The social media companies are just working as propagandists for the Democratic Party. That's it. Again, Robert Epstein told us 16 million votes could be swung by Google alone. They control 95% between the mainstream media and social media. They control 95% of the flow of information, and they are 100% in for the Democratic Party. If you're out there and you're a Democrat, you're thinking, great, it'll bite you in the ass. Just so you know. You think that there's going to be an actual Democratic Party person running that's actually going to stick up for you? You really think that? You don't think they're going to use this power against people that you're interested in? Against you? Okay. State and corporate control of the flow of information. The same people that are yelling, Trump's a Nazi, Trump supporters are fascist, are literally today cheering for state and corporate control of the flow of information, of the selective censorship of anything they disagree with. And they're calling you a fascist. The same people that will punch you, will burn down your business, that will attack you if you don't agree with them, but say you're the fascist. You're starting to see they're everything they accuse you of. Now, I myself like Mike Cernovich. Right? I know a lot of people don't. They think he's black-pilled. Some of his predictions might be wishy-washy, things like that. Whatever. Look, I'm the type of person, there could be things I heavily disagree with a person, but I still think they're good or entertaining, or I like people that say different things, that think about things differently. That doesn't mean I agree with everything they're saying. So maybe you don't like Mike Cernovich. Maybe you'll disagree with some of what he says here, but I want to play this for you because this spoke to me, and maybe it'll speak to you about what we saw from the censorship efforts today.
That's the only implication today. A major censorship Rubicon was just crossed. And Mark Zuckerberg has determined that he owns you. He owns your data. He owns your most private moments. And he now owns your mind. The New York Post, in case you haven't noticed, published a story alleging very serious, unethical, and perhaps criminal conduct by Hunter Biden, the son of, by all accounts, by all polls, the next president of the United States. The emails clearly show that, and the emails, are they authentic? That's a question that people can ask. People can ask, are the emails authentic? But based on the Joe Biden campaign response, it appears the emails are authentic. Because if you read carefully, the Biden campaign is going with you have to pull this because it's hacked. Twitter has said now, this just broke, that the emails violate its hacked news policy. Facebook comms is a former Democrat staffer. So the information that will flow to Facebook is now controlled by a former Democrat staffer. Now, for me, am I surprised by all this? No. I told everyone, and you guys all insulted me and got mad. I told everyone that my stress level went down when I accepted that I'm a sharecropper on Facebook's plantation. Now, how long will I accept my status as a peasant? How long will you accept your status as a peasant? I don't know. But first, you have to end the denial. We are nothing to these people. We are sharecroppers on their digital plantations. They think that they are our masters. They think that we are their slaves, literally our mind slaves, that they can cultivate what goes into our head. And for me, that there's a sense of godliness in the truth, right? There's a sense of godliness in knowing that we are all peasants. And until the peasants revolt, nothing is going to change. Until the peasants revolt, nothing is going to change. Jim Jordan, faker. Section 230, faker. Jim Jordan won't sign on to Ken Buck's GOP antitrust report because Jim Jordan has been bought and paid for by Google. Section 230. No, break these companies up. Antitrust law. That's our peasants' revolt. All of these companies have to be broken up. That's why when Democrats win in November, good. Let's see if they do something. Maybe they won't. Come talk to me in 2020. Cash me outside in 2020. People go, oh, the GOP is going to lose the Senate in 2020. Good, I fucking hope so. Fuck them. I hope so. Fuck them. They had the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and all of us said, hey, you motherfuckers better do something about big tech. You motherfuckers better do something about it. They go, no, we want to give a tax cut to the rich. We want to give a tax cut to Mark Zuckerberg. Fuck you then. Fuck you. Lose. Now, we'll give the Democrats a chance. Maybe the Democrats will be pushed to take antitrust action and break up these companies. We'll talk again in 2020. So I don't care. Not only do I not care, I look forward to the GOP losing badly. They deserve to lose. And I'll be happy when it happens. I'll be happy when it happens because they could have taken action. None of this would have been happening. We told them the number one issue was social media censorship. Will Chamberlain said it. Jack Posobiec said it. Ali Alexander said it. All of us have said it from day one. That Trump won because of social media. You better do something now while you have the power. They wouldn't do it. And now some of y'all are conned by Jim Jordan. Jim Gordon is the Trey Gowdy of our day. Biggest con man ever. Remember when Trey Gowdy said that the FBI acted properly in its prosecution, General Flynn? Trey Gowdy. Oh, yeah, Trey Gowdy. You're the same way with Jim Jordan. Y'all are cons. It's pathetic. It's pathetic to me. Anybody who speaks highly of Jim Jordan, get out of my notifications. It's pathetic. He has you all conned. He takes the Google money, and then he goes, Section 230. They're not doing shit on Section 230. They had 2 years to amend Section 230. What he's doing, though, is he's refusing to sign that Ken Buck GOP antitrust report. He's protecting Google from antitrust action. He's protecting Facebook from antitrust action. He's protecting these big tech companies. And then you guys are like, oh, yeah, but he said this like sick thing on Hannity. So does Lindsey Graham. TikTok, TikTok. Are you not tired of the 4 years of TikTok? This is what blows me away about people. And I think it has to do with how you have self-worth, right? When you have low self-worth, you let people abuse you. When you have high self-worth, your standards are higher. I have high self-worth. I don't let people treat me a certain way. I don't let people treat me a certain way. I don't let people lie to me. I don't let Lindsey Graham go and say tick-tock, tick-tock for 4 years, but he wouldn't issue subpoenas. But then when it looks like he's going to lose this race, now he's all about, oh, we're doing subpoenas and shit. With a month ago, sorry, bro. So if you have high feelings of self-worth, if you believe you matter, you don't let people treat you a certain way. And conservatives are a slave class, a slave morality class, where they just let Jim Jordan, Lindsey Graham, Sean Hannity treat them like shit. Sean Hannity treats you like a fool. Here's Lindsey Graham. Lindsey, TikTok, big developments. Instead of saying, hey, Lindsey, bro, why haven't you issued the subpoenas? Why haven't you done anything? So you, not most of you who watch me, but conservatives allow themselves to be abused by Hannity, by Jim Jordan, by Lindsey Graham, rather than just saying, hey, bro, you're full of shit, dude. You're not going to treat us like this. You're not going to lie to our faces. Jim Jordan, we know what you're about. Lindsey Graham, we know what you're about, dude. We know what you're all about. How you're trying to con us. Oh, Section 230, trying to con us with that bullshit. You can't let this happen. But today was a Rubicon moment. It was a seminal moment. In a way, it was helpful. How can it be helpful? You know what's the most beautiful moment in life? Clarity. Moral clarity. There's nothing more beautiful than moral clarity. You can't now say, well, how do you prove bias? This is kind of hard to figure out. No, there's moral clarity. The tech companies think you're trash. They think we're all trash. They think we're garbage. They want us to keep us as slaves. This is what they're going to do. This is the new normal. Complete and total mind control, complete and total banning accounts, complete and total filtering of information. That's clarity. There's no room for debate now. Mark Zuckerberg's your master. He's your slave owner. Oh, mine too. All of us. And it's good. And that's how he views himself too. So today was a great day because today was a day of moral clarity. They own you. They own you. They own all of us. I'm not going to live as a slave for much longer, though. Are you? Right? So the moral clarity is good. The next step is I'm not going to live like a slave for much longer. They showed it. This is who they are. They showed us who they are. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in November. Thanks for watching, Mike Cernovich. Cernovich.com. CER.
Now, I see some comments of people don't like Cernovich. I get it. I don't agree with everything he said there. The idea that the Democrats are going to do something more, of course, that's absurd. I get that, right? But that end part is what spoke to me. And there's something even in the center there that I think that as conservatives or anyone that you need to understand. Mike Cernovich is by no means a Democrat, right? This is how many, many conservatives are feeling. And I'm borderline there. Why am I voting for the Republican in my House race in District 15 in Pennsylvania? What is my guy who's been in office for like 12 years, what has he done? Could he be bothered to say something, do anything about this tech censorship? Nope. He hasn't done anything. Has my Republican senator done anything? Nope. Did they stand up and say, hey, you know what? Our district's not systemically racist? Nope. Did they stand up and say, hey, we're against these lockdowns? Nope. All we get is empty platitudes from them over and over and over again. And Cernovich is right. Republicans controlled the House, Senate, and the presidency, and they didn't do a darn thing about this tech censorship. All of us knew. Us that are conservatives, or not even just conservatives, even liberal people that don't fit into the nice, neat box of the establishment Democrats, they suffer the same sort of censorship and removal on these social media companies. We've all been talking about it for years. I remember one of my biggest viewed videos years ago was when Joe Rogan had Jack Dorsey on from Twitter and basically just softballed and allowed Jack Dorsey to just get away with not answering any difficult questions on censorship on Twitter. Then they brought Tim Pool on, who actually held Dorsey's feet to the fire. But in that interim, I remember doing several videos criticizing Joe Rogan, saying this was Joe Rogan's big issue. He's supposed to be a free speech guy. He has one of the guys on most responsible for censoring people. Why didn't he grill him? I've been fighting this fight. I'm some guy that's got maybe 100 people that watch each one of my videos. Where were our representatives? They couldn't see the writing on the wall? As long as they're getting reelected and they're getting money, they don't care. And he's also right about Jim Jordan and Lindsey Graham in this context. They promise us the world. Oh, we're looking into it. We're going to take care of it. And then they do nothing at all. Luca, you're right, and I'll talk about that in a second, that more people are listening. But here's my contention, and it's Chris correctly calls this a black pill episode. It is. I don't think, Luca, that was unintended. I don't think that Twitter is that dumb and Facebook's that dumb. Maybe they are. I don't know. I can't prove this. This is just my gut feeling. But I think that Twitter and Facebook knew by censoring this story that more people would see it, inevitably. And they didn't care for two reasons. One, because the mere fact that even if more people censor or more people see it, they'll be able to say, all of their audience, the left-wingers will be able to say, well, the fact that it was censored, even if you see it, proves that it must not be true. And there are a lot of people in the center that rely on authority figures for their information. So they'll say, oh, well, I don't know whether or not to believe this story. With Trump's tax returns, basically everyone said it was true. But with this story about Joe Biden, there's a lot of people saying that it's garbage, so much so that it had to be censored. So there must be something wrong with it. So even if more people see it, it's going to cloud a lot more people's vision on it, I think. Not people like us that have looked into it independently. But we already knew about this. But there's a more nefarious reason, which I talked about earlier in the show. Twitter and Facebook and our mainstream media, they're clowns today. We know it. We can see, as Cernovich said there, the Rubicon's been passed. There is no longer a debate. They are clearly biased. They're literally saying they can't run stories that they can't prove or that were obtained illegally, evidence that was obtained illegally, 2 weeks after they just uncritically repeated the Trump tax return story. After 4 years of all the illegal leaks about the Trump-Russia collusion that ended up being Russian disinformation. After they called Kavanaugh a gang rapist and reported all those stories. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't do it. So we all know they're liars. I don't think they care. I think they want you to know that. That's the point. They want you to know there ain't a damn thing you could do about it. Guess what? You had your best shot. You had Trump, who actually, I think, cares about the people. You had a Republican House. You had a Republican Senate. And they didn't do nothing. Nothing. Nothing at all. I said this, and it's one of the least popular things I've said in my channel. I've said it over and over. And every time I get people in the chat, you're full of it, blah, blah, blah. I'll say it again right now. I've been saying this forever. If no one goes to jail over the coup attempt, if nothing's done about things like this, if these tech companies aren't broken up, ladies, excuse me. I'm looking at you, Dorothy. If nothing's done about these tech companies, if no one in the coup goes to jail, would we have been better with the Hillary Clinton presidency? I voted for Donald Trump for one reason, and that was to out the corruption of the establishment. And whether he's done it intentionally or the establishment couldn't help themselves, he's done that in spades. We now know beyond a shadow of a doubt how corrupt the media is, how corrupt the FBI is, how corrupt the CIA is, how corrupt the Democratic Party is, how corrupt establishment people in the Republican Party are. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, how corrupt academia is. The entertainment industry, Silicon Valley, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's proof. These groups, the people that really run this country, not the elected officials, but call them what you will, the deep state, they had been like the boiling frog theory, right? They're ratcheting up their corruption a little bit every year, but they can't do it all at once. And so they're slowly taking away your rights. Patriot Act and social media spying on you and selling your information and selling out to China. Slowly. They're doing it. Then along comes Trump. They wanted Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush. Hillary Clinton versus Marco Rubio. Then they don't care. Both of them are two sides of the same coin. Great. The establishment wins either way. What they didn't want was someone who was a potential outsider, like Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump. So they screwed Bernie in the primary, which don't worry, Bernie later sold out, so don't feel too bad for Bernie. And then they were like, whatever, Hillary will wipe the floor with Trump. Have you ever seen so many people in a president's own party go against him? The Lincoln Project, all the Never Trumpers, your McCains, your Romneys, your Jeff Flakes. because they never were conservatives. They were always on the same side, the establishment. They wanted Hillary to win. The mistake was that they believed their own garbage. They thought that they had it wrapped up. They believed their own polling. Hillary's got a 99% chance of winning. We got it. So they didn't cheat enough, and Trump won. And so then they panicked and they went into overdrive, as I knew they would. And they showed all of us how corrupt they are. Constant investigations into Trump, constant illegal leaks, constant immoral or illegal things that were done, spying on Trump. All of this crap, smashing evidence of Hillary's crimes with a hammer, allowing Hillary to illegally delete subpoenaed emails, all of this crap. They just let it blatantly for all of us to see. And I believe at that moment when Trump won, allegedly, Hillary said, if he's elected, we all hang. I think they panicked. I think they were, for the first time in my lifetime, they were scared. Oh shit, the American people are going to see what we've been up to. They're going to know the truth, that their elected officials have been selling them out for 40 years. They're going to see all the corruption, all the illegal wars, all the siphoning for money to corrupt oligarchs. Their tax dollars going into the pockets of corrupt officials overseas and then back into the pockets of corrupt officials in the United States. Selling out the country to places like China. They're going to see all of it. But then something amazing happened. Or it might have happened. We'll see. There were no consequences. Imagine being Jim Comey and like, oh my God, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. But then you wake up one day and you're like, wait a minute. I got a book deal. I'm basically a national hero to everyone in power in this country. All the celebrities, all the institutions. I'm a hero now because I went against Trump. I get to go on TV anytime I want. I'm wealthy and I'm facing no punishment whatsoever. Wow. Or John Brennan, or Clapper, or McCabe, or Peter Strzok, or Lisa Page, or Vindman, or Yovanovitch. All of a sudden they started to realize the ugly, ugly truth, which is, oh my God, this is a huge win for us. Thank God Donald Trump won. Because you know what they got? All of their schemes were laid bare for the American people. And the American people looked at it and said, what's up, Jeff? I'm voting for Trump. Who do I think is going to win? Not Trump. The establishment. I think they'll cheat to win. It's just my feeling. We'll see. So back to the question. If no one's held accountable for their crimes, if Twitter and Facebook's allowed to censor whoever they want blatantly, 2 weeks before an election, blatantly censor stories, blatantly just be an arm of the Democratic Party, if none of this changes, would we have been better off with a Hillary presidency? Because at least under a Hillary presidency, they would have had to keep it under wraps. They couldn't have been this corrupt in your face. They would have still been fearful. If our corruption ever becomes public, there will be consequences. That fear is gone. It's gone. If these people aren't brought to justice, if Donald Trump loses, the Durham investigation shut down, no one involved in the coup will face punishment. Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube, they'll all be able to censor whoever they want. Censorship efforts on people like me will ramp up. I'm relatively unscathed because I'm a small channel. But people that are bigger, that are conservatives, one by one, they'll be let go. A reason will be found to get rid of them, to censor them, to bury them. People like me that are smaller will continue to be shadow banned. I'll continue to have live streams pulled as they go. The courts will be packed. We'll have open borders. You'll lose your right to defend. Even if they don't take away the Second Amendment, it won't matter. If you defend yourself legitimately, they'll just arrest you. The mob will be allowed to do what they want. Now, don't get me wrong. The mob will quiet down because the mob is the foot soldiers of the Democratic Party. So Black Lives Matter will stop rioting. Antifa will stop rioting. And the lockdowns will be lifted. Because what they're telling you is, we're going to make your life hell unless you vote for us. And then 4 years from now, maybe you're considering not voting for them again. They'll make your life hell again. Just so you know. That's it. Their plans have been accelerated by 30 years because they were working slowly in fears that the American people would find out. But now the American people know and hardly a peep. I was arguing, I lost I don't know how many subscribers arguing against lockdowns and against Trump endorsing Gavin Newsom and Cuomo's lockdowns in March. And I had Trump supporters in droves telling me, how dare you criticize Trump? Clearly this is the way to go. Clearly this is what we should be doing. And what did I say over and over? I said there are three things that could come from COVID that could damage this country. Number one is the disease. I have no idea how many people it will kill. It could kill anywhere from 5,000 to 5 million. I don't know. Any death is tragic. Clearly, once you get to the hundreds of thousands, it's horrific. However, even if 5 million would die, it wouldn't end the United States. It would be tragic, but it wouldn't end the United States. The second thing would be the economic fallout, which I thought, and I think I'm being vindicated, would be far worse than COVID. In other words, the lockdowns and the people that died as a result of the lockdowns and the economic fallout would last for a decade, and that would lead to far more harm than COVID. But even as bad as that'll be, the United States can survive. But you know what we can't survive? The people willingly giving up their rights outlined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights anytime the government says, give them up. There's a threat. Give them up. We're literally sitting back as a country while the governor of New York rounds up Jewish people for gathering nonviolently, but the same governor applauds rioters and protesters gathering in far greater numbers, violating the exact same orders. He doesn't arrest any of them. And the American people are like, oh, we're starting to get upset. Really? Businesses in my town shutting down in droves. The World Health Organization came out and said, lockdowns don't work. Just like I'd been saying. And what are the people doing? We know that there was a coup against Trump. What are the people doing? We know this tech censorship's occurring. What are people doing? And Biden will probably win. And then what? That's it. So the question is, I understand Mike Cernovich's rage. Now, am I going to assume the Democrats are going to do better? No. Am I going to do everything I can to help the Republicans and Trump win? Yes. Absolutely. But I understand the frustration. I share the same frustration. We just heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but Barr's team wrapped up their investigation on the leaks against the Trump campaign. No charges brought. So now you can illegally leak conversations of your opponents, private conversations, no problem. I hope you're right, Resin. Why are you so confident that Biden won't win? Because you don't believe the polls? Me neither. They'll cheat. Do you think that the party that was willing to send COVID patients into nursing homes to increase the death numbers, that was willing to go against science and leave schools locked down, that is willing to prevent stimulus bills from getting out to the American people, that's willing to intentionally crush the economy and kill people, that's willing to endorse riots, that's willing to spy on a president, that's willing to engage in a coup, that's willing to blatantly censor any story that's negative of them? Do you think they're beyond cheating when it comes to the ballot box? Do you trust the Republicans to do something about it? You think Jim Jordan or Lindsey Graham's going to do something about it? I mean, they've done so much in the coup, right, against Trump. They've done so much regarding tech censorship. You think they're going to step up to the plate? Do you think the Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court that said, look, you can't go to church in Nevada. If you have 50 people in a church for Nevada, it's illegal because of COVID. But you same 50 people could go to the casino. You think that Supreme Court, you think they're going to do something about it? Right? I see what the polls are saying. The difference is this, Resin. They lost in 2016 because they believed the polls. This time they don't. This time the polls are there to gaslight you, not you, but average people into thinking, oh, Biden's winning. So when they steal the election, great, it matched up with the polls. And I've been telling Trump supporters this for a year and a half, that we're convinced Trump's going to win 48 states, landslide. We'll see. I don't have faith in politics. I don't have faith in individuals. I have faith when it comes to my personal religious beliefs. That's my faith. I put faith in members of my family and people I know. I don't have faith when it comes to politicians. I don't. I hope that I'm wrong. But I'll say this, the same attitude with people that were convinced, we got this election wrapped up. That's what I saw from Hillary supporters. How'd that work out? I hope I'm wrong, but understand this, I don't know. I also thought Trump would lose in 2016 for what it's worth. I hope I'm wrong. I do. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not your enemy by thinking that Biden's going to win. I'm not. I'm still going to do everything I can. In fact, I'm motivated more by thinking our side's going to lose to get out and do more. That's just the type of person I am. So it's just a prediction. And people get furious if you're like, I'm not saying you're doing this, Reza, but I've had people get furious at me when I say this. I'm not saying it to PO people. I'm just saying. That's right, Chris. The same people, your friends and family in the Democratic Party, everyone on the, well, not everyone, but many people on the left, the media, academia, the entertainment industry, Silicon Valley, the Democratic politicians, the same people that none of them have been willing to accept the 2016 election will go furious and insane if anyone dares to suggest if Biden won that there was something shady going on. I hear you, Crusader. I'm pretty private with my faith, but I understand what you're saying. There is faith that you could put in religion. That's different. I also believe this, that God intended for us to work for our own betterment, to not just rely on him to make things right for us. That's why I'm trying to do so much to point out this corruption and how the establishment is screwing over the average people in the left and the right, by the way. What's up, Drone Tech? So let's real quick then. Let's go back. I'll probably try to wrap up at 9 here. Let's go back and look. So what are the claims? We keep hearing now all the media people saying that this, it's all a lie. The New York Post story is a lie. What exactly are they claiming is a lie? Now, this is how you know that they're full of it, because they're not citing specific things and saying, they're saying like, well, this computer shop owner seems shady. Okay, we have the actual subpoena that shows that the FBI actually took a computer from this shop owner. That doesn't mean that these emails are accurate. Doesn't mean that. But have you heard them say that the emails are inaccurate? Has Biden's team said that? Has the media said that? No one said that. In fact, as Cernovich said, they're suggesting, oh, these were illegally obtained emails, therefore you can't see them. If they were made up emails, they wouldn't have said that. They would have said, yeah, this story's garbage. These emails are fake. So they're not saying that. Joe Biden's team put out a letter that was like, we checked Joe Biden's records and there was no official meeting with this Ukrainian. Okay, how do we know that it wasn't unofficial? Notice they didn't say, they didn't flat out deny and say, he never met with this guy. They just said it wasn't in our records. Why not just deny it if it's a lie? Why not just come out and say, these emails are garbage. Joe Biden never met with that guy and we can prove it. Go ahead and look at our records. Now, we know that the Ukraine right now is investigating Burisma, the president of the Ukraine that Joe Biden and all the Democrats and all the State Department people admitted was not corrupt, was interested in ending corruption. His top prosecutor has publicly said that they have phone calls, that they've released portions of the phone calls, that there were bribes paid, that Joe Biden and John Kerry was personally talking to the president of the Ukraine about this investigation, and that they're investigating Biden and his son as possibly committing crimes in the Ukraine. That's the Ukrainian government right now. So if Joe Biden comes out and says, these emails are all garbage, and the president of the Ukraine comes out and goes, we have those emails. Our investigation dug those emails up from our end. Then what? So Joe Biden doesn't deny the emails. He didn't did he? What do they say? So what's the implication? Are we just denying that Joe Biden ever met the person, but the emails are true? Or are we saying the emails weren't true? Okay, if the emails aren't true, are the pictures of Hunter Biden that were released alongside them real? Or are those photoshopped? So are the pictures of Hunter Biden smoking crack and smoking cigarettes, are those fake? Is that what they're saying? Or is the allegation, the New York Post got this data from a computer, the pictures are accurate, but the emails aren't? Is that what they're claiming? It doesn't make sense. And that's how you know they're lying. They didn't come out with the specific, right? When I had problems with things like the Steele dossier, I was able to come up with specific things that I thought were problematic with it. For example, we could definitively prove, looking at passports, that Trump's lawyer Michael Cohen had never been to Prague. Ever. Easy to prove. So we saw that, and I was like, wait a minute, this is a central... We could prove that there was no Russia consulate in Miami. Easily provable. So it's like, wait a minute. If these two things are crucial to the overarching story, and we could easily prove within 5 minutes that they're false, why should we trust the rest of the things? Looking at specific things and proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were false. That's how I did it. That's how people on the right and people that were questioning the Steele dossier did it. How are they questioning this? What are they doing? It's the same way they question John Solomon's reporting, where they just say, that's all garbage. Don't publish it. No one read it. It's all crap. Russia, that's the other thing. Oh, it's Russia. This came from Russia. That's it. That's not proving that this is false. That's right, Luca. Joe Biden's been running this with his brother and also with his son-in-law. I hope you're right, Resin. I hope Trump will win. But even if Trump wins, and even if Trump wins and the Republicans win the House and Senate, if they don't do anything about this tech censorship, it's inevitable that they'll get crushed inevitably. You can only allow your propagandists to control the entire flow of information for so long, until it'll become effective. You can only allow them to control academia for so long before you end up brainwashing young people. Right, they'll avoid, exactly, Drone Tech. They have to avoid dealing with it. And that's the other thing. Because the media have endorsed, and the Democrats have endorsed completely revamping the way we vote 2 months before an election, they have ensured that no matter who wins, that the American people will not trust the outcome of the election. That's not my fault. And I had people telling me, don't you think it's dangerous to talk like this? Maybe. I'm not the one who advocated completely changing the way we vote 2 months outside and ignoring the obvious problems with universal mail-in voting. Every day, I post more stuff to Twitter. We found ballots in Pennsylvania. In New Jersey, we found ballots. In Arizona, we found ballots, all discarded. This person was arrested for voter fraud in Texas. This person was arrested in Philadelphia for voter fraud. And the Democrats, just like with the riots, they say, no, it's not happening. It's not happening. So can you blame me if I'm skeptical at the outcome of an election? I also won't blame Democrats if they're skeptical if Trump wins. Why wouldn't they be skeptical? They've been gaslit by the media that have constantly said Donald Trump's intentionally sabotaging the mail, which is just a lie. They've demanded that we completely change the way we vote. So they've set up a situation where every American is going to question the results of the election. Does that sound healthy? Does that sound like someone that was interested in good governance, what they would do? No. It sounds like people that want to cause division. And that's on the Democrats. That's who did it. So, takeaways from today. 2 stories. 1, the actual Biden story. Biden did everything that he accused Trump of doing. It's not just a Joe Biden story. The entire Democrat establishment and political establishment, including the mainstream media, carried water for Joe Biden and Barack Obama as they used a quid pro quo to fire a prosecutor looking into Joe Biden's son. Period. End of story. There is now more evidence that Joe Biden's specific denials of ever talking to his son about his foreign business were a lie. I can't prove that these emails are 100% accurate. I can't prove it, but they're certainly worth investigating, and there's more proof, and it makes more sense than what we've been told by the media about Trump for the past 4 years and Russia collusion, and they had no problem reporting that over and over. But the second story is, all of these people, and add in Silicon Valley, are now actively laughing in your face and censoring anything that could be adversarial to their chosen candidate, Joe Biden. This is not just a Joe Biden story. It is corruption of the entire media. And it blows my mind. I'm seeing all these leftists that I kind of respect, like Brett and Eric Weinstein and Glenn Greenwald and Aaron Mattei, people that have been critical of the Russiagate story, how they still justify being like, well, you can't vote for Trump, he's terrible. How could you ever vote for these people? They're out there today being like, wow, this censorship's really disturbing. Donald Trump's not coming for you, people on the left. Donald Trump's not trying to censor you. He's not trying to get you fired or make it criminal for you to defend yourself or your property. That's the left. So just, what, you're not going to vote for him because he says mean things on Twitter? That's it? That's what you're going to do? Can someone explain? I wish I could get on to one of these shows of these left-wingers. What exactly is your opposition to Donald Trump? You're against critical race theory, right? You understand that's garbage. You're against the foreign regime change wars. All right, so's Trump. He's done great for peace in the Middle East. So what exactly you put? Okay, maybe healthcare. Maybe you don't like his healthcare plan. Fair enough. But are you willing to say, well, I'll vote for the other side that's doing all this evil crap that's going to lock you up, by the way, if you're in the intellectual dark web? They're going to censor you. They'll deperson you. That's what you've seen them try to do it. It's not the right wingers censoring you. We're on the side that encourages open debate. I debate communists every week. I allow people to say all kinds of garbage stuff on my show or on their show, and I sit there politely and take it. And I just try to rebut them with facts. That's what I do. I'm not the one censoring people. That's them. I agree with you, Nighthawk. I don't know that they're confident they'll win either, but I'm just giving my honest opinion. I will be happy to come on here election night, and I'll be like, I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad Trump cleaned up. I'll be happy to do it. I just don't know. How many things have happened that you were like, there's no way that could happen? There's no way that they'll be able to impeach Trump. Keep in mind, and here's something we didn't talk about. The FBI, if this story's true, the FBI sat on it since 2018. They've had this. What have they done? Nothing. Nothing at all. If I can find out that Viktor Shokin, that was fired because Joe Biden issued a quid pro quo for $1 billion of your tax dollars, if I could figure out that he seized the assets of Burisma's founder, Zlochevsky, if I could find that out, you don't think the FBI could? Yet they've done nothing. It's beyond belief. You would be like, even if they're in the tank for the other side, this is evidence so public, surely they'll have to do something. They've done nothing. Nothing. Channel Woe. Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, you're right, Channel Woe. Yeah, thank God that the media is censoring this Joe Biden story today. I mean, it's just Trump being a crybaby. Great point, Channel Woe. Really adding a lot to the conversation there. No, it's not just censorship when the government does it. When the bulk of our information is traded through social media companies and social media actively works in concert with one of the major political parties to ensure that people are depersoned, deplatformed, or that information critical of that party can't be spread, that too is censorship. Right, I get you weren't talking about that channel. Well, of course, you wouldn't be. I mean, that's the topic that we're discussing here. But why would you be talking about that? Makes sense. Every single time, if any of the things that we see that happened to Donald Trump happened to Joe Biden, remember, Donald Trump was impeached for picking up a phone, talking to the president of the Ukraine and saying, hey, did you guys look into this Burisma stuff? What was the deal with that prosecutor getting fired? That got Donald Trump impeached. Barack Obama's FBI admittedly, beyond dispute, 17 times errors and omission to spy on Trump's campaign, including manufacturing evidence to say the opposite of what it said. That occurred, and everyone on the left's like, what? Trump's this perpetual victim. What's up with this victim mindset, man? Great point. Because I bet that if that's what you would be saying if it was Joe Biden, right? If Donald Trump used the FBI to spy on Joe Biden using unverified opposition research that he paid for, and then his FBI lied or omitted stuff 17 times to continue to spying on Joe Biden, I'm sure you'd be on here like, what's the deal with Joe Biden and like this victimhood complex? Like everybody's out to get Joe Biden. What's up with that, man? I'm sure that would be your take. Great take. Yeah, everyone's against Trump, even his family. I remember watching Don Jr. the other day against him, and Eric Trump, and Ivanka, and Melania. I remember, oh wait, none of them were. He had what, like a niece or something? Great point. I mean, do we want to, it's funny, Channel Woe is someone who did, I will say he pointed out that when I said at one point that Black Lives Matter was cheering on, was outside the hospital when those 2 officers were shot in Compton, it actually wasn't Black Lives Matter. Channel Will's right. It was an organization that marches with Black Lives Matter and believes ACAB, all cops are bastards, like Black Lives Matter, and wants to defund the police like Black Lives Matter. But they don't actually call themselves Black Lives Matter. And Channel Will felt the need over and over to point out that semantic difference and how important that was. That made a really crucial point to him. So I guess that semantic matters. So let's see. You say everyone is against Trump, even his family. Okay, I'm not against Trump, so it's not everyone. So you're a liar. So I will accept your apology that you've intentionally lied here. Let me ask you, Chris Mayo, are you against Trump? Drone Tech Politics, are you on here? Are you against Trump? Are you? Is Eric Trump against Trump? Is Don Jr. against Trump? Is Matt Gaetz against Trump? Is Tucker Carlson against Trump? Is Kayla McElhaney against Trump? Is Kellyanne Conway against Trump? Sean Spicer against Trump? Channel, whoa, where you at, man? Everyone's against him. Surely you can provide proof. Let's see, everyone. Let's just take one person. Channel, whoa, can you show me evidence of Don Jr. being against Trump? Can you show that? Go ahead. I'll wait. Go ahead, show me the evidence. You're Mr. Semantic. I mean, you probably made 30 posts to me about how it technically wasn't Black Lives Matter. It was a tangentially connected Black Lives Matter group. And you should really apologize and don't misinform your viewers. So I see you're on here. I see you're on here, Channel. Well, please. Hyperbole. Oh, you were wrong. That's what you were saying. Oh, that's convenient. Yeah, so you were wrong. So you intentionally came on and misled people. Got it. But it was just hyperbole when you did it. Got it. Right. I know it wasn't Black Lives Matter. As I said, it was a group that was connected to Black Lives. Originally, it seemed as it was reported that it was Black Lives Matter. But they later, when they realized it was bad press for Black Lives Matter, they came out and said, well, we're not Black Lives Matter. We're just a group that marches with Black Lives Matter and believes everything they do. I know. That's what they said. Got it. Great. But that was a point that was really important to you. That was super important. Granted, you said it was only one person, and then we could later see that it was more than one person. But it was really important to you. So I'm going to hold the same veracity that you held. Show me that Don Jr. is against Trump. Show me that I'm against Trump. Show me that Drone Tech's against Trump. Or shut your mouth because you're a liar and everyone's not against Trump. And you're just one of these apologists that want to come in every time we see evidence of corruption of the other side and try to make it hyperbolic and say, oh, it's just Trump's a big victim. What's up with that? You add nothing to the conversation. That's why people don't want to talk to you, because you shouldn't be taken seriously. Because when we can show you obvious censorship and obvious crimes occurring from the other side, you seek to deflect by saying, oh, this is just Trump being a crybaby. Yeah, I guess then, did you say the same thing, for example, when you had the few lone voices like Bernie Sanders that were against the Iraq war? Way back then, did you say, oh, everyone's against Bernie? Clearly, Bernie's just got a victim complex. Clearly, we should go. It must be true that we need to go to war in Iraq. Did you say that? Is that what you were saying? Yeah, I get people understand the difference. What you mean is you understand the difference. And the difference is, like we see from the mainstream media in Silicon Valley today, is this: that you set the rules and you don't mind being a hypocrite, that you arbitrarily do things that you then accuse other people of doing. When you do it, you think it's okay. When other people do it, you think that it's a horrible sin. Yes, we see the difference. That's what you think. For example, I'm sure you think there's a difference between it was bad for allegedly Don Jr. to try to talk to a Russian lawyer to get dirt on Hillary Clinton, but there was no problem with Hillary Clinton paying a British spy to talk to a Kremlin spy to get dirt on Donald Trump. I'm sure you think it's a difference where it was horrible for Trump to possibly suggest a quid pro quo to Ukraine, but it was perfectly fine and different for Joe Biden to issue a quid pro quo to Ukraine. It's okay for Silicon Valley and all these social media platforms and news platforms to use illegally obtained Trump tax records and report on that and make that the story for a week and a half. But it's not okay if there was a story that's negative of Joe Biden because it could have been illegally obtained. Therefore, none of the news outlets should take on it. I understand you see the difference. Yes, oftentimes people that are indoctrinated do think that they see differences in these things. The rest of us that are looking at things objectively call your actions hypocritical. That's what they're called. When you do the very thing that you accuse others of doing and say it's okay when you do it, but it's bad when they do it, that makes you a hypocrite. You see? You see how that works? And you saying, but I see the difference, doesn't prove that you're not a hypocrite. It just further shows your hypocrisy. Sorry, it's been a long time coming with this channel, Woe Guy. Which, by the way, thanks for following me and thanks for posting. If I didn't feel like talking to you, I wouldn't. But I just think it's very funny. Yes, I acknowledge, as I acknowledged in that thread over and over again, originally the reporting was it was Black Lives Matter. Then, once that group saw that Black Lives Matter was getting bad press, they said, oh, no, we're slightly different than Black Lives Matter. Yes, we march with them. Yes, we do. Yes, we agree with them about defunding the police. Yes, we agree with them about systemic racism. But technically, we're different slightly than Black Lives Matter. I get it. And that's why I said it was a group that shared the ideology of Black Lives Matter. You kept saying, but it's not Black Lives Matter. It's not Black Lives Matter. Got it. So, fine. Now prove your point that everyone hates Trump. You can't. You're a liar. Got it. Let's see what other great point. If a police department is found to have been grossly corrupt, are all law enforcement across the country then also corrupt? No. If the head of the police department, if they have a special investigation consisting of 17 people, all of them handpicked by the head of the police department, and every one of them found to be corrupt over and over again, does that prove that the agency needs to be destroyed and that the important parts of the agency were grossly corrupt against whoever they were going after? Yes, it does prove that. That's what we saw from the FBI. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks, Christian. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for coming on Channel Will, for real. But again, I suspect if you really want the answer to this Black Lives Matter question, and what we're talking about is when these two officers were shot in Compton, then a group of people that called themselves the Africa Coalition showed up and said that they hoped the cop died and protested outside of the hospital where the cops were being treated. It was originally reported that night that it was Black Lives Matter. I did a video in my car on the way to work that said, looks like Black Lives Matter. People were protesting outside the hospital. Channel Woe then did a video saying that there wasn't proof that it was Black Lives Matter. Who was it? Who was it? Who was it? So then I did another video and I commented, when he asked me, I said, it was a group that shares the goals with Black Lives Matter called the something Africa Coalition. And he said, I just wish you'd send proof. Just send proof that that's the case. Just send proof. And I finally said, you can't Google this? It's very simple. But I put the link where they show the video where they say, we're the Africa Coalition, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, they say they're not Black Lives Matter. I said, yes, I said in this thread that it was a group that shared the goals of Black Lives Matter with defunding the police. But it's not Black Lives Matter. And I'm right, and you really need to inform your audience of this. Now, the truth is, Channel Woe, that I suspect that they would have endorsed the message of Black Lives Matter. I would assume you would agree that Black Lives Matter is not a monolithic group and that they would say that they were part of that until they saw it was getting bad press for Black Lives Matter. Then they said, we're technically separate from Black Lives Matter. We just agree everything they agree with, but we call ourselves a separate group. Okay. Still a group that ideologically aligns with Black Lives Matter, celebrating the shooting of cops. How does that change the effect of the story whatsoever? And in addition, I cited you many other things like city councilmen in Compton that identified and marched with Black Lives Matter that were also celebrating, professors that were celebrating that shooting, other people that spoke for Black Lives Matter and claimed they were members of that organization that said that this was the chickens coming home to roost, that this was a revolution and that we needed to have some violence in it. I cited all that, but it didn't matter because this group technically just universally aligned. I suspect that they changed their tune and no longer called themselves Black Lives Matter because of the bad press that it was bringing Black Lives Matter. It would be like if someone said, the Tea Party's doing something, they're doing something terrible, and a bunch of Tea Party people did something terrible, and then those people came out and said, well, technically we just march with the Tea Party all the time and we agree with everything they say, but we don't call ourselves the Tea Party, we call ourselves the Coffee Party. Okay. I don't think that you would have been wrong to say, well, this was basically a Tea Party group, but that's fine. However, yes, they did exist before, but they also, again, there were many groups that then merged into the ideology of Black Lives Matter that existed before. For example, well before Black Lives Matter, the Black Panthers existed. I debated people on college campuses that were putting up critical race theory garbage, saying that I was evil because I was white and things like that, well before Black Lives Matter existed, and now they're out there marching with Black Lives Matter and saying that there are members in the organization Black Lives Matter. Just because they existed before Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that they couldn't have been subserved and kind of taken into that group and that umbrella. There are all sorts of organizations that unite under the manifestation of Black Lives Matter. That's true. The important thing is they share the ideology of saying we need to get rid of the police, we need to get rid of prisons, there's systemic racism, and they believe critical race theory. And they're advocating for the killing of cops, just like other people that endorse the ideology of Black Lives Matter. I agreed on that video. That doesn't mean that everyone that supports Black Lives Matter is endorsing the shooting of cops. It doesn't even mean that everyone that endorses Black Lives Matter are bad people. I know people that go to Black Lives Matter rallies that I think are good people. But there is undoubtedly the people that are controlling that organization are embracing a violent ideology. That's what I said. They changed their tune, this group, the Africa Town Coalition, when they realized that they were getting bad press for Black Lives Matter. Just like Black Lives Matter changed their website when it turned out their radical communist statements, such as dismantling the structures of the European prescribed nuclear family, was very unpopular. So they changed it, because they are a political organization and not an ideological one. And so they're constantly doing internal polling and trying to find out what's popular and trying to distance themselves from any section that might be unpopular. This is very much in the same vein that Antifa does. So a self-proclaimed Antifa member could go out and shoot Aaron J. Danielson, say I'm 100% Antifa, and then I have debates with people that say, but that's not Antifa. Antifa's just an idea. I did help you understand. Now, can you show me everyone hating Donald Trump? I'll wait. We'll take one person, Don Jr. Or admit you were wrong. Yes, ideologies can be political, but if you're ideological, then a political position wouldn't matter to you. So, for example, if ideologically, let's say I believe in small government, then I wouldn't be okay with the Republicans massively exploding the government because I'm ideological. In other words, the ideology comes first and foremost. If I'm a political organization, then I am Republican first. If Republicans are for bigger government, I'm still Republican. That's the difference. Black Lives Matter isn't they want you to believe they're about an ideology of improving the lives of black people, but they're not. The people that run it are a political movement. They're interested in political power. That's why they don't care about the black homicide rate. They don't care. If they cared about black lives, then they would say, what is the biggest cause of the loss of young black men? Oh, interracial shootings or intraracial shootings? Yeah, we're going to deal with that. Instead, they rarely talk about it. In fact, they advocate for policies that would directly increase the causes of death of the black community, such as defunding the police. Remember, 14 blacks were shot and killed last year unarmed by police. But 7,000 were killed in intra-racial homicides. So they're going to bump it up, and all the evidence shows over and over, we can see every single city that's been arguing to defund the police are actually done it. Their homicide rates are increasing, so they don't care that actual black people's lives are getting worse, that their communities are being burnt down, and that more black people are being murdered. They don't care because they're not ideological. They don't care about black lives first and foremost. They care about political power and Marxism. That's what it's about. Channel Woe says, you say that critical race theory calls being white evil. I've never heard that. Not everyone that endorses critical race theory says that, but everyone that endorses critical race theory says that whites, there's something wrong with whites. It might be that you're responsible for original sin. It might be that you have unconscious bias. It might be that you have privilege. It might be that you have fragility. It might be that you're evil. And you could hear these things being said all the time. For example, go back and watch Nick Cannon. You know who Nick Cannon is? Did you go back and watch his video from 2-3 months ago? Where he says, oh, it's about the melanin. He basically repeats this crap that you hear from the black Hebrew Israelites. The Jews aren't the real Jews and melanin's godly and white people are like savage beasts. You know, racist rhetoric, the same type of crap the KKK used to say about black people. Now, critical race theory implies that many people that endorse it imply that very same thing against whites. Yes, I was routinely told because I was white, I was evil. One of the best-selling books in the world right now is a book called White Fragility, about the shortcomings of white people based on their race. We're constantly told that we need to acknowledge our, quote, white privilege, and somehow that you have some moral scarlet letter on you based on the color of your skin. It might not be the term evil, but it's saying that you have shortcomings based on your race. That's what critical race theory does. When you judge people solely based on your race, that is racism. That's what critical race theory does. Oh. Want a video chat? I gotta go. I was supposed to be done at 9, so I got like 5 more minutes for real. But yeah, I wouldn't mind video chatting someday. Let's see. Right, Nighthawk. Again, it's another argument of semantics. I haven't heard them say white people are evil, just immoral, or fragile, or privileged, or responsible for sins of their forefathers. Okay. Right. I know. That's exactly what I said you were doing. So Channel O says, okay, what I meant by everyone hating Trump, I was speaking to the narrative that when pointing out failures of Trump as being explained by some anti-Trump conspiracy. So again, the purpose of this video was to show the crimes of Joe Biden and how the media was censoring the story that proves that he's corrupt today. You come on and you're like, oh, everyone hates Trump. That's exactly what I implied you were saying. That you're saying, oh, well, this is just, here we are. It's some big conspiracy because of the failures of Trump. What did anything I have to do with the failures of Trump? Again, you seek to discourage or to deflect from the topic at hand by saying, well, Trump's really crappy. And therefore, this is just part of your huge conspiracy theory to cover for Trump. It's not a conspiracy theory when I could point to each one of the things what I'm alleging. For example, I could point to the quid pro quo that Joe Biden used to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son. I could prove that that prosecutor that Joe Biden alleged wasn't doing anything on February 2nd, 2016 actually froze the assets of the leader of Burisma, a man by the name of Zlochevsky that Joe Biden himself said was corrupt. I could prove that Blue Star Strategies, that was the law firm employed by Burisma, again, Hunter Biden's firm that his dad said was corrupt, Blue Star Strategies then sent a letter to the State Department asking to directly mentioning Hunter Biden's name and asking for the State Department under Obama and Biden to intervene to help this corrupt company. I could prove that within a month, Joe Biden went and issued his quid pro quo. All of that is proven beyond a doubt. And then I could prove that the investigation went to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. That was the ally of Obama and Biden. So surely now, if Burisma's corrupt, as Obama and Biden say, and if we had to get rid of that other prosecutor and use a quid pro quo to do it because he was stopping the investigation of Burisma, surely now that it's in the hands of Obama's allies, it'll be investigated. How'd that end? Oh, all of the assets that were seized of Zlochevsky that the prior prosecutor did were promptly given back to him and the investigation was dropped. I could prove the coup attempt against Trump. I could prove that we know that the FBI agents and intelligence community people were troubled because they found that Hillary Clinton was trying to smear Trump as colluding with Russia. So troubled that they asked James Comey, the director of the FBI, to investigate it in September of 2016. I could prove that the FBI had 17 errors and omissions, including directly changing evidence to say the opposite of what it was to spy on Trump's campaign, including talking to the Russian subsource that they themselves said was a Russian spy that was seeking to damage U.S. national security. And they took that person's disinformation, which we now know is disinformation, and used it to spy on the President of the United States without ever trying to verify it. I could prove that. That's easily provable. I could prove that those same FBI agents, according to the IG, he could not rule out bias in their clear attempts to prioritize the Russia investigation over Hillary's emails. The very thing that we know FBI agents were saying they were worried that Hillary Clinton was trying to force them to do. I could prove that. I could prove that FBI agents said that they thought it defined credulity that Hillary Clinton, when she told them, testified to them, that she thought the little C for classified on the top of a document was alphabetical order, that they thought that statement defied credulity. In other words, Hillary Clinton lied. I could prove that the FBI thought that it was illegal for Hillary Clinton to delete subpoenaed emails. I could prove that FBI agents texted that and from emails that were released, that we know that Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin, both assistants of Hillary Clinton, lied to the FBI when they said that they were unaware of her server until after her tenure of Secretary of State. When released emails of theirs show them talking about Hillary's private server way back in 2009. I could prove that. I could prove that Paul Manafort was locked up in part for failing to register as a foreign lobbyist, but he committed that crime, according to Mueller, with the Podesta Group, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign chair. Manafort was locked up. Podesta was allowed to retroactively file paperwork. Now, just because a bunch of this stuff happens and you don't look into the facts channel, well, you're just watching CNN or whatever, doesn't mean that just because there's a laundry list of them that they must all be false. And this is a good lesson for those of you out there watching, right? This is what I'm not saying you're a bad person, channel wall, right? But this is what happens. The corruption is so deep and there's so many examples. For example, talk about text censorship. You could go through hundreds of examples of a person on the right doing the exact same thing as a prominent person on the left. Person on the right gets censored, person on the left doesn't. You can go through hundreds of examples. Go back and watch the Joe Rogan episode with Tim Pool and Jack Dorsey. At least a dozen he brings up of direct double standards. And what happens is, who was it? It was one of Stalin's people, right? That said it, when you lie, you tell the biggest possible lie because everyone will believe it. I'm paraphrasing. That's exactly what happens. The corruption's so deep that it allows people like Channel Woe to just say, Oh, well, it's all just, there's so much. It must just be garbage by Trump supporters. It's all just this big conspiracy. Again, I'm not saying you're a bad person, Channel Well. Maybe you weren't with people or watching content that was proving all of this stuff. No, but Channel Well, I find it, don't get me wrong, I'm not mad at you. And it's just in my nature to talk like this. But I actually am glad you came on because I did want to talk to you. And someday you could actually come on and talk on my show. I won't mind setting up a time with you. And I'll give you a fair shot. You could, a litany of people that I've given equal time that disagree with me. It's more fun to have people that disagree or coming with a different perspective. Because if we're all sitting around agreeing, it's not as fun. So I'm not signaling you out out of anger or anything. You don't watch CNN, fine. I hope you don't, and I tell people all the time, if you're going to, I don't mind if you do, I don't mean it that way, but you should look, even if you're on the left, to independent content creators, because even if I disagree with them, at least they're not saying what they're saying because they're getting paid big money. The vast majority of them, so. But, anyways, so yeah, I don't know where, I would say that based on your statement that you have not accurately looked at the information such as the IG report, my recommendation to you would be go back and read the IG report, particularly on the FISA applications. Go back and read the FISA court statements about how they were misled. Go back and watch the testimony. Don't watch me. Don't watch Fox News. Don't watch OAN. Read the documents yourself. Go back and watch the testimony of Rod Rosenstein and James Comey, both of which said, had they known then what they know now, neither of them would have signed the FISA warrants to spy on a person connected to the presidential campaign of Donald Trump. That's shocking. To spy on an American citizen is shocking enough. To spy on a presidential campaign and then later acknowledge I was misled by my own FBI is shocking. It should be the biggest news story in the country. Go back and read John Solomon's article that I'll link here. I'm not saying to trust it because it's John's. Oh, crap. Did I close it? But read that John Solomon article that I linked earlier. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick. Here it is. And don't trust him because he's John Solomon. Trust him because he sources everything that he's talking about to see the facts of this Ukrainian situation. So. Okay, let me try here real quick something. I'll try on Discord for setting up a debate at some point. I do debate people, so that's no problem. These people that debate me, I'll debate Destiny again. I don't know, Destiny is actually a polite person to me. I know my dog definitely believes Hunter Biden did crack. Certainly true. I got to go let them out. I really do here, so I got to move. But yeah, Channel Woe, thank you for being here. Anyone that wants to do debates and stuff, look, I got to be honest. Sometimes they're draining, and here's why they're draining. Very rarely do I find someone who wants to debate in good faith. For example, go back and watch the first debate I did with Destiny. It's real simple. What was the impeachment of Donald Trump about, right? The impeachment of Donald Trump was about, allegedly, Donald Trump improperly used his office to investigate his opponent. That was the allegation. He withheld aid in a quid pro quo to force an investigation of his political opponent. My contention was, if there's a reason to investigate Joe Biden, then there is no crime. So in other words, because we saw during the Obama administration, was it a crime that Barack Obama, his FBI, wanted to investigate Donald Trump? No one said that was a crime. Now, the way they went about it was criminal, but to want to investigate is not a crime. If a president thinks that a political opponent legitimately committed a crime, if there's evidence to suggest that, then it's not impeachable for them to say, yeah, let's investigate. So my take in that debate with Destiny was going to be, I was going to say, if I could prove that there's enough evidence to warrant an investigation into Joe Biden, then it's not impeachable. Trump wanting an investigation of Joe Biden isn't impeachable if there literally should be an investigation of Joe Biden. I get on the debate with Destiny, and this is how it goes. I said, okay, so they're impeaching Trump, right? Because he issued a quid pro quo to basically investigate his opponent. And Destiny says, no. And I was like, what? He's like, nope, that's not why. And I was like, okay, why do you think they're impeaching Trump? Because he withheld aid. And I was like, but that happens all the time. We could see Bill Clinton did that. We could see Barack Obama did it. We see George W. Bush did it. It happens all the time. Doesn't matter. It's impeachable. Whataboutism. Trump should be impeached. He withheld aid. That's it. That's simple. So then it took me 40 minutes to painstakingly be like, okay, can we agree impeachment's a political process and not a legal one? Yes. So it's just what matters then is the political people that are voting for it and why they're voting? Yes. Okay, let me tell you what Adam Schiff said. Let me show you what Chuck Schumer said. Let me tell you what Nancy Pelosi said. Let me tell you what White House said. Let me tell you what Durbin said. So I had to go through all that and say, now, if they're saying they're impeaching Trump for a quid pro quo and looking into Joe Biden, can we at least get back on the foot of that's what we're debating? I guess. The reason I bring this up is this. It is so rare to get a debate in good faith. That's the sign of a person who's debating to win an argument instead of debating because they actually want to get to a truth in reality. Or it's like when you debate someone like I did on the Antifa debate. And I say, look, this Antifa person killed Aaron Danielson. She could have said, that doesn't represent all of Antifa. That's what she could have said. But instead she said, now wait, let's not call that an execution. That might have been a shooting in self-defense. What? We all saw him in cold blood shoot this guy that was unarmed. Well, it could have been a good shoot. How do you have a discussion with someone? Or how many people have I debated that was like, what riots? I don't see any riots. What riots? How do you have a debate like that? If you can't start off on basic truths, how do you have a debate? Now, I'm not saying everyone's like that. Right, and I agree with you, Channel Well. I do like debates once in a while, but I agree with you. Discussion's usually the word I use when someone comes on, because you could theoretically come on and be like, actually, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Rob, but have you thought about this? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. That's not a debate. That's two people having a discussion to see to try to get to some truth that are willing to hear each other out. When you approach it as a debate, you're thinking, I need to win. And so in your effort to win, you'll just say stuff that's garbage. But yeah, Channel Well, you come on someday. We'll talk about we'll start with this. We'll start with Joe Biden. We'll do an hour. We'll go through the impeachment of Trump. We'll go through the evidence. You tell me at the end of that, one issue, that's it. We'll just take one issue. You tell me at the end of that, if you're legitimately looking at this, if you don't think that there's a lot of problems and a reason to scratch your head about what Joe Biden was doing with his quid pro quo. Like, honestly, you come on. Now, if you do come to that conclusion, like, yeah, okay, then ask yourself, what was the impeachment about Trump? Why were all the Democrats so forceful in saying that we shouldn't investigate Joe Biden? I hear you, Nighthawk, but I will admit that that's something that I myself have said because, to me, these words do mean something different because I was a debater in college. And for a debate to happen, you need to have a strategically worded topic. Like, I'll give you an example. I had this smart aleck one time that wanted to debate me because he was in a class of mine, like a speech class, and he knew I was one of the best debaters in the country. So I'm just at Little Clarion University, and he's like, I want to debate you. Actually, at this point, I wasn't one of the best debaters in the country. I want to debate you. I said, okay. The topic was quality is better than quantity. That was the topic. And he had one argument, and that was he had a lot of girlfriends, and that was better than having one significant other. I won that debate. I could have won a million ways, but the reason I won that debate was I successfully argued that without both are meaningless. So, for example, take food, right? He would say, you'd rather have one great steak than 10 hot dogs. Okay, seems reasonable. But what about one minuscule bite of a great steak? You need some amount of quantity for the quality to matter. He had no idea what to say. He's like, what? But I only bring that up because the specific wording of that debate matters, right? That's why I oftentimes, when I do these debates, it irks me that they change like, for example, the Russia collusion debate, the original question posed was the Russia investigation into Trump illegitimate? Was it a coup? But then when we got to the debate the day before, they were like, here's the debate. Did Russia interfere in the election? And I was like, well, that's garbage. Yes, Russia did interfere. So did China, so did France, so did Spain, so did Italy, so did the UK, so did Israel, so did Iran, so did North Korea. But I'm not going to win that debate. Yes, of course, every country interferes in our election. It depends on how you define interfering. But theoretically, having your politicians talk to politicians from that country saying, hey, we think it'd be better if this guy wins. That's interference. It's not a big deal, but it's still interference. So I was like, what does this have to do with the topic? That wasn't what we agreed to debate about. So anyways, I'm just meandering, but that was... I'm not buying the polling. I think the polling's there to intentionally gaslight us so that it can steal the election. Because if the average person thinks that Biden's up 9 points in Pennsylvania, if Biden wins Pennsylvania by 3 points because they did a bunch of ballot harvesting crap, then the average person's going to say, oh, well, that aligned with the polls. By the way, here's a take you'll get from me that you don't hear from many other people. I look for the polls, even the ones that I'm saying I don't believe, the gap's going to close no matter what. Even if Trump does a bunch of dumb stuff, and it would seem as if it would be helping Biden, the gap will close. You want to know why? Because this is what happened in 2016. At the end of the day, all of the fake media, all of the polls and all this crap, they rely on their credibility for people to listen to them. And so what the pollsters were able to do in 2016 was to say 2 weeks out that Hillary Clinton was winning by 11, 12 points. But then by election night, say, well, it's only going to be 2 or 3. Then no matter who wins, they could say, well, we were within the margin of error. If Hillary would have blown out Trump, they would have said, well, yep, our polling the week before was right. So we're right. Yep, we were right all along. We knew Hillary was going to blow him out, even though the gap closed at the end. If Hillary wins by a small gap, they're able to say, see, our polls were right. If Trump ends up winning, they say, see, we're within the margin of error. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe that we all told you for 3 months that Trump didn't have a prayer because we shrunk the gap at the end. So that's what happened. They're going to do the same thing this time. The gap will shrink no matter what. At the end of the day, I guarantee they'll be saying, at least in the battleground states, they'll be saying they're within 2 or 3% because they need to maintain their credibility. Who do you think has a 96? Oh, that's what they said about Hillary. Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. That's what I believe. So, all right, I got to go. The story of the day is the fact that the media is censoring this, the Rubicon's been passed. They're showing you they're an enemy of the people. Silicon Valley and the media are not people that are a platform. They're not people interested in the news. They're willing to attack other news outlets. They'll spread unsubstantiated sources. They'll spread hacked tax returns and things like that. They don't care. They'll spread all that. But anytime it comes to harming their political party, which is the Democrats, they'll censor that. So that was the theme of the today. Thank you, everyone who joined. I'll hit you up at some time, Channel Will. Sorry if I seem a little snarky, but yeah, that's just in my nature. I don't mean ill will by it. So thank you guys so much. I gotta go let the dogs out, maybe watch a film with my wife. So you guys are the best as always. Have a good one.